Hey everyone. Welcome back for the fourth part of What if Female Orochimaru wanted Naruto instead? As always, huge thanks to all of my Patreons. Making these videos would be impossible without you guys' support, especially with all the restrictions YouTube places on my type of content. As always, the full story is already out over there for you guys along with about 30 other different stories you can enjoy. Also, feel free to send me any messages over there if you have any questions or even if you just want to chat. Link to all of that will be in the description. Anyways, everyone, enjoy the video. Chapter 18, Go to Church. Do you ever regret it, Jiraiya? Naruto asked. It was the day after the old man's confession and Naruto hadn't slept much. After Hiruzen left, Naruto watched as a beaten Kabuto almost had his skull crushed by the hands of his lover. Subtly channeling Kurama's chakra, he could feel her disappointment in Kabuto's actions. The offense in his motivation. But more than anything, her rage. It didn't burn like his. Before he integrated and got a true leash on his emotions, Naruto's anger often felt like it could melt tempered steel. Hers was cold but no less pronounced in its expression. He didn't step in, however, because she hadn't felt out of control and he was proven correct. The disgraced medic was told to leave, given some mission he only half paid attention to, but while helping Kabuto up off the ground he placed a Hiraishin marker on him. Kabuto had shown himself to be a potential threat and death would come swiftly should the need arise. Jiraiya looked at his godson, the red-haired young man sitting under a tree and looking up at the sky. But his eyes didn't seem focus. It was not for the first time Jiraiya wondered what his final student was seeing. If there were a stark contrast between Naruto and Minato, it would be that for all his genius, Minato was often focused on the present, the next obstacle. His freakish, and frankly inhuman, ability to process things at a rate a Nara would envy allowed him to do so. Naruto often seemed focused on the future, the present a mere formality. Their worldviews showed in their development. Minato created the Rasengan after seeing a tailed beast bomb and improved the Hiraishin. Naruto believed he could use the sub-elements before he'd truly mastered any of the primary ones. Jiraiya never saw Minato have a moment of self-doubt. Not that he lacked introspection, he just came to decisions quickly and moved. Naruto doubted and thought and agonized. Whereas Minato was the perfect shinobi, Naruto was the most powerful. I have many regrets, kid. You'll have to be more specific. Seriously training me. You didn't have to make me a toad summoner or request I undergo training to be a sage. Even some of the sub-elements I learned came from the information you provided me. Not for a minute, Jiraiya responded without delay. Where is this coming from? Naruto hesitated before answering, not sure how to express it all. When I first started seriously training it was out of offense. There was so much in my life I couldn't control. I couldn't know about my parents. Couldn't change my reputation. Couldn't not be the shortest. Couldn't not be alone. But my chakra was just that, mine. Something I could control, and yet some fucking geek was telling me when I was allowed to learn jutsu. I couldn't stand it, so one day I made a decision. And I made that decision the next day and the day after that. I didn't understand then that strength can't exist in a vacuum, not in this world. A decision made almost 10 years ago and remade every day since. I wanted to be the strongest, the best. What would change for the better if you were weaker? I'd probably sleep better, Naruto quipped. Bullshit. You may have made the choice at 7, but you would have made it at 10 or 12 or whatever. The weak are preyed upon unless they get stronger or someone does it for them. At what point are you simply preying on the weak regardless of your intention? Jiraiya stroked his chin, deducing some of Naruto's concerns. He hadn't told Tsunade the true extent of Naruto's abilities yet, there hadn't been much reason. Jiraiya had seen powerful shinobi, he'd trained 5 of them. Minato could decimate armies. Nagato could do so much more. Naruto was simply in a different class and he was likely there alone. You don't seek conflict, Naruto. That's debatable. At the very least I invite it. You didn't invent war, kid. We've waged a few before you got here. I'm not saying that. However, even if only a pretext, Raz's dossier on me didn't exactly help matters. Strength invites challenge, be it out of fear, anger, grief or arrogance. In a world full of killers, what good is being the strongest, the best while speaking of peace? When your enemies only see the strength, the peace you want looks like tyranny. We don't have to be just killers, we can be more. I could build every resident of Konoha a new house and they'd consider it a neat trick. If I killed the Raikage with a tree root I'd be made Hokage tomorrow. We didn't make ourselves killers alone, we had help. Someone was paying the clans, someone pays for missions now. An entire intricate web that runs on violence. The client sees one thing, the enemy sees another. No one is encouraged to see the humanity of the other. I believe people will understand each other, Naruto, Jiraiya responded and saw Naruto shake his head. I believe they can too, but understanding promises nothing. What if what we want is simply incompatible? Understanding isn't going to change that. Or what if we can't forego that feeling that comes with overcoming those that oppose us? That high from putting your life on the line, staring death in the face and getting away with it. The excitement of true victory? I can't argue against that, but it's a better path forward than false assumptions and bloodletting. Now, come on, what brought this on? Everything? Nothing? Or something in the middle? We talk about people understanding each other, but that doesn't even happen in Konoha, or maybe it has and that's the problem, Naruto stated. He knew he wasn't being clear, so he laid it out plainly. The old man was waiting in Orochi-chan's house when we returned. He'd cooked up some plan with Kabuto but claimed he was abandoning it. Called for a truce of sorts between her and him. That's good. He was lying. Less so. I accepted that he almost got her killed when he held back help against Nagato. I didn't have much choice, he was Hokage. He isn't Hokage anymore, Naruto rubbed his face in irritation. They, to some extent, have a better read on each other than anyone else. They enjoy playing those games and she isn't just passive. I recognize her part, but my tolerance for it has run out. If he moves against her again, I'll get involved. You thought of talking to him? Jiraiya questioned but knew the answer. He sometimes forgot the negative emotions sensing the Kyuubi had provided Naruto. He sees me as a 7-year-old prop, not an agent with my own will. I don't want to do this, Jiraiya. I'm more than happy to leave him alone. Then make him see you differently. I've tried to dissuade him. I have no doubt Tsunade has as well, but Sensei is convinced he's protecting you. Maybe he just needs some reassurance that's not the case. Besides, if you were to move against him, even justified as you would be, you have to know there are a lot of ninja that would stand in your way. Retired Hokage exist in a murky place. No real authority but a lot of sway and pull. He doesn't have enough bodies to put between us to deter me. Ah, that's part of the problem, Jiraiya thought. Don't go feeling guilty for things you haven't even done yet, idiot. You know, your mother would kick your ass if she saw you sulking like this. Then she'd feed you inhuman amounts of ramen, Jiraiya said with a chuckle. Naruto laughed as well, liking the thought. I think you should go talk to him. Believe it or not, he really does think he's doing this for you. But enough of all that heavy stuff, what are we working on today? A few clones will be experimenting with steel release, but I'll be training yin-yang release. Why don't I just save you some time and carry you to the hospital now? It's not that bad, T-Bio, Naruto exclaimed, but in truth, it was. Of all the releases he's attempted, this was by far the most difficult, Naruto not managing to create a single jutsu or reliably channel to chakra nature at all. Whatever, kid. What exactly are you attempting? I've got time, so when you knock yourself out I'll get you where you need to go. Naruto rolled his eyes but got to work, committed to making his godfather eat his words. So, what specifically are you trying to do? Maybe I can help. I've been learning how to generate healing chakra from Oba-chan. Her self-healing ability comes mostly from a mastery of yin release. She hypothesized Hashirama-sama's came from his mastery over yang release, Naruto stated. Which is believable given the requirements of the Makuten, Jiraiya added. Yup. I'm attempting to use yin-yang release. If I can, I theorize it should allow for even more radical healing than Hashirama-sama and with none of the drawbacks of Oba-chan's, and I could even use it on others, not just myself. How radical? Hard to say, but yin-yang release is basically pure creation, so grow back a limb, bring someone back from the brink of death? Who knows really? Naruto answered. Jiraiya's eyes light up at the possibilities of such a technique. It'd certainly be a step forward in the medical arts if Naruto could pull it off. What are you waiting for? Get to it, Jiraiya exclaimed, breaking Naruto's concentration. I'm trying, you shitty pervert. Try harder. Naruto's hair shaping into 9 distinct tails was all the warning Jiraiya got before the chase began, one toad sage doggedly pursuing the other. Elsewhere, Tsunade donned a grim expression on her face. Orochimaru had shared Hiruzen's confession and call for a truce. Neither woman believed the man was done. Tsunade knew neither side would ever truly budge, their mutual antipathy well earned over the years. Is Kabuto still alive? Kukaku, of course. Tsunade hummed in acknowledgement. It wasn't a guarantee she'd have left the boy alive, not after he confirmed he told Sasori where to find Naruto. Tsunade wouldn't have cared if Orochimaru killed him, but doing so without going through proper channels could have caused a problem, which was the Sandaime's goal. It wasn't the worst plan. Where is he now? He was told to join Kimimaro-kun and the others in their search for Zetsu, Orochimaru responded. Tsunade shot her friend a look. You sure that was wise? From my understanding, the Kaguya is a bit fanatical in his loyalty. What happens if he gets Kabuto? Kimimaro won't do any permanent damage. He knows how to follow orders. Aha! And if they should find and neutralize Zetsu? What then? Why, I don't know, Tsunade-chan. You're the Hokage, I'm sure you'll figure something out, Orochimaru said, sarcasm dripping off every word. Tsunade simply rolled her eyes before sighing. Are you going to finally tell Naruto? Now that he knows about the secret room? Yes, tonight, Orochimaru answered, her tone losing all playfulness. If he doesn't respond well, I'll handle it, Tsunade-chan, Orochimaru stated. Tsunade nodded and let the matter rest. Not liking the tense atmosphere, the snake summoner decided to change topics. We've been so focused on how my night went we haven't even brought up your after-dinner activities. Tell me, Tsunade-chan, did you let that toad play in your well? She said, donning a devious smirk. What? Tsunade asked in genuine shock. It's a metaphor. The toad represents Jiraiya and the well your vag. She was cut off before she could finish. I know what you meant and no, of course I didn't. What is wrong with you? I'm a high-functioning sociopath that got co-blocked by a geezer. The question was rhetorical. And I answered using rhetoric. Ugh, keep this up and I'll declare you a missing ninja, Tsunade said on faux exasperation. Sex was that bad? Glad the student doesn't take after the teacher. Once again, Jiraiya did nothing but walk me home. To even suggest anything more is absurd. You did go out on a date with him. That was to observe you and Naruto. You rarely go out, how am I supposed to watch you blush cutely when Naruto does something sweet if you don't go out into the public? I never knew you liked to watch, Orochimaru said, attempting to unsettle Tsunade once more. I get my jollies where I can, Tsunade responded, not allowing her friend the upper hand any further. But to be serious for a moment, wouldn't Jiraiya and I dating bother you? I thought you hated him. I don't hate Jiraiya. I did when we were kids, but I realized he was just competing for Sensei's attention like we all were. Once you understand that, he just becomes a sad, little fool that's fun to mock. Besides, even I know the value of someone that has your back and we fought a war together. Don't abstain on my account. Naruto was making his way to the Hyuga compound, traveling at a sedate pace. Contrary to Jiraiya's taunts, he hadn't rendered himself unconscious or exhausted his chakra network in his attempt at yin-yang release. And while there hadn't been a monumental breakthrough, if one were to ignore a stunningly few number of people could even use the release, Naruto concluded he was getting a grip on how it felt to call upon the two contrasting energies at once in near-perfect balance. The Uzumaki leader was happy with his progress, but his face wouldn't show it. He couldn't articulate it, but he had a sense Kurama was feeling apprehensive about something, and while he wouldn't claim to be an authority on Kurama's personality, the fox was never shy about expressing his opinion. This got Naruto both curious and a little concerned. Kurama, are you okay? He asked. I am conflicted, the Baijuu shared. Any way I can help? No, as you are central to the conflict. There is a technique that utilizes yin-yang release. I have only ever seen two people use said technique and neither learned it but were able to do so innately. I'm guessing one of them was your old man? Yes, Kurama answered swiftly. Naruto didn't follow up immediately. He knew how much Kurama revered his father, so even considering sharing a technique from him would be a pretty significant gesture. Well, I still have a ways to go with yin-yang release, so how about you not worry about it until then? No need to cause yourself any unnecessary stress, Naruto reasoned. You are closer than you realize, Kurama said. He'd been with the boy his entire life, likely understand his chakra better than even Naruto himself. He was very near being able to reliably wield the most difficult of releases. It wasn't even a matter of when but how, and that the boy thought of healing before the potential destructive capabilities confirmed what Kurama already knew: his container was a good person. Whether or not he was the one his father spoke of, Kurama couldn't say. He even questioned if such a person would be allowed to exist, as the Baijuu felt this world simply didn't want such a figure to come to the fore. However, If such a person did exist, Kurama believed Naruto would be the likeliest candidate. One of his fondest memories was the boy, a mere 14-year-old, demanding they be friends because no one should be alone. And with that, Kurama decided he would try to help Naruto learn the pinnacle of ninjutsu, confident he wouldn't abuse the ability. With one of his concerns put to rest, Kurama cut the connection and allowed Naruto to focus. Naruto felt Kurama end the conversation, the sensation indescribable. He didn't mind that the fox never ended things like a person would. As soon as he was done, he just stopped talking. It was blunt, but why would a giant fox be anything but? Naruto walked into the outdoor area he normally trained Hanabi. He heard before he saw her diligently striking a training post. It would take months for her to truly reprogram her instincts away from the gentle fist, but she was a dedicated student and a pleasure to teach. He also saw her ninjato sitting beside her, a little charm tied to the handle. Some might admonish her, but Naruto wouldn't. She wasn't a kunoichi yet, but a child training to be one. Also, if she were good enough to get away with it, then why shouldn't she? The Uzumaki was not alone in observing his student, Hiashi and Neji both in attendance. It was not surprising to see Hiashi there, as he would pop in their sessions from time to time. Neji, however, had been unexpected. The two had crossed paths since Naruto revealed his heritage, and the Hyuga seemed to not know how to regard him. Naruto thought he should just visit that bun-haired girl one night and get laid so he'd stop worrying about other people. It had surprised no one that Jiraiya agreed with Naruto's assessment. Hiashi-san, Neji-san, Naruto greeted. Hanabi heard but knew to continue her warm-up, pleasantries could wait. Naruto-san, Hiashi replied. Uzumaki-san, Neji said. You two planning on observing today? Naruto asked in genuine curiosity. It'd be a really unfortunate lesson to sit in on. If you wouldn't mind, Hiashi answered, and Neji merely nodded. Of course not. And it appears she is done warming up. Good morning, Hanabi-chan. Good morning, Naruto, she said, and ignored the brief tensing of her father's face. Naruto didn't require or ask her to call him sensei, so she didn't, and her father needed to accept it. What are we doing today? I'm not going to have to fight those demonic gummy things again, am I? Naruto laughed. To help her practice her new taijutsu style, Naruto created a few of his water-style, gummy paladins to fight her. Not really stronger than the average water clone, but significantly more durable, Hanabi did not enjoy sparring the little golems. Not today, Hanabi-chan. We're going to start you on getting used to fighting without one of your biggest assets. He watched as she thought for a moment before coming to a conclusion. My Byakugan? Yup. Not saying it'd ever happen, but if you are in a situation where you need to rely on other sensory inputs, it's best you have trained and prepared for such an event. Now, the rules are simple. Once it starts, I will only move, at most, 5 feet from my current position. You must find me and retrieve this scroll, he explained, pulling a red scroll from his pocket. Once you do that, we can move on to the next exercise. Any questions? Just one, how are you going to suppress my Byakugan? With Genjutsu, of course. I don't think you quite get how my eyes work, Naruto, Hanabi said. Naruto simply smiled while performing a sequence of hand signs, and before the Hyuga heiress realized it, she was cloaked in perfect darkness. An infinite blackness that knew no start nor any end. What many don't know about Tobirama Senju's Genjutsu is the psychological toll being trapped in pure, unending nothingness can do. If undisciplined or weak of mind, the insecurities poor repressed will come to the forefront. For others, it's an overwhelming sense of paranoia as their honed instincts tell them threats are all around them. Hanabi had lost all sense of herself, the illusion making her feel a part of this unnatural night. Every sound made her twitch, unable to pinpoint the location. She knew she just had to walk straight ahead and then decided if her sensei moved further back or to the side. But that first step was so difficult. Her body screamed to move meant instant death. Her only safety was to stay still. She felt her body shivering, a sense of terror and dread overcoming her. Outside of the illusion, Hiashi and Neji watched, neither able to pierce the illusion with their famed bloodline. Hiashi knew of this technique but had never seen it, had never wanted to. To think the art they were naturally defensive of could overcome them. The Nidaime was a truly fearsome man, and for Naruto to seemingly use the jutsu casually made Hiashi believe the boy was more formidable than he'd estimated. Uncle, what is this technique? It's called the Bringer of Darkness, an S-class forbidden jutsu created by Tobirama-sama. How do you think Uzumaki knows such a technique? I could only speculate. Maybe Tsunade-sama showed him, but I doubt she'd let him look at the forbidden scroll. It is also possible that Orochimaru knows the technique and taught him. Truly fate favors him, Neji replied. He kept his features and voice even, but Hiashi could hear the traces of resentment and jealousy. His nephew had come a long way, managing to stop hating the main branch over the last few years, but even Hisashi's words could not reach him. His belief in fate and his confidence he could see its design were too central to his being. Back in the illusion, Hanabi had gotten the resolve to march forward. Every step felt like a battle won, with the physical and mental exhaustion to go along with it. She'd taken 5 steps thus far. And a 6th. Slowly, she forced her body to stop twitching at every sound as if it were a grave threat. 7th step. Next, she got her legs to stop shaking with nothing but the force of her will. With her 8th step she walked into something solid and felt a hand on top of her head. Faster than she could react, the illusion was gone and her sensei's whiskered face was smiling down at her. You did very well, Hanabi-chan, he praised, but the Hyuga did not feel it was deserved. Naruto could see as much on her face. You may not believe you did anything, but it's true. On my very first mission outside of the village we were ambushed by some bandits. And I froze. All my instincts, all my training left me. Luckily, the Chunin leader handled them, but had he not I was a liability. I promised myself that day I'd never freeze like that again. But that doesn't mean I was never scared. Fear isn't to be ignored, however, it also cannot be allowed to paralyze us. You fought through your fear and achieved your goal. That is laudable, so don't downplay it, okay? Hi, she responded, feeling a little embarrassed by Naruto's sincerity. She saw he still had the scroll in his hand and reached for it, the Uzumaki giving it to her without protest. As she opened it she saw directions for how to perform a sealless replacement jutsu. I want you to, slowly, start decreasing the number of signs needed to perform the replacement jutsu. I'm not going to lie, most jutsu are too complex to truly be done without hand signs, and to attempt mid-battle would likely take more time than just performing them. But for something like this or the Shushin, going sealless is not only feasible but it could save your life. Hanabi took the scroll and promptly began practicing. Naruto walked back toward Hiashi and Neji. That was very clever, Naruto-san. Telling Hanabi you'd be testing one thing when you were really examining something else is something a seasoned teacher would do. Well, I've gotten a little practice with Konohamaru and his friends, so I'm not entirely new to this. How did you come to learn the Nidaime's jutsu, Uzumaki-san? In appreciation of the alliance between the Senju and the Uzumaki prior to the founding of the Hidden Villages, and Konoha and Uzushio afterward, Hashirama-sama and Tobirama-sama left scrolls of some of their jutsu in the care of the Uzumaki. Once my heritage was revealed and my inheritance given to me, it was just a matter of finding them. Alliance? Uzushio? Neji asked, confused. Yes, the Uzumaki weren't just a clan but cousins to the Senju. Hashirama-sama's wife, Mito, was an Uzumaki herself and a gifted practitioner of Fuinjutsu, Hiashi informed his nephew. You have quite the pedigree, Uzumaki-san. Naruto shrugged. Neji wasn't wrong, and Naruto could recognize the advantages of being born to the parents he had, but some of that was negated by them dying on the day he was born. Or maybe he was just crazy. The three continued to watch Tanabe train when Kurama spoke again. There's going to be a problem, he said. What? You remember that thing we thought might happen, but if it did it wouldn't be for years? You mean your yin half reforming not with you but outside of the seal and somewhere near or in Konoha? Yes. You have 10 seconds. Naruto created hundreds of shadow clones, one meant to find Tsunade and request she not send any ninja to where the other Kurama appeared. One to Jiraiya to ask him to do the same. Naruto himself spread his chakra around to sense where his father's Hiraishin markers were. 10 seconds passed quickly and he'd yet to explain anything to Hiashi, the man startled by seeing someone produce hundreds of something that could kill some jounin if they tried to make 5. Whatever Hiashi's question would have been would never be verbalized, as he saw something he'd hoped to never see again. Collectively, Konoha froze in terror when the bane of their existence, the being they held responsible for the death of the 4th Hokage, appeared above them. All was quiet, eerily so, as they soaked in the unfathomable fox. And then, as if a spell had been broken, collectively their wits returned just as Naruto's clones started to spread throughout. A moment of realization was shared. The Kyuubi had returned and chaos ensued. For a few, the return of the Kyuubi didn't just refresh long repressed traumatic memories. No, they believed they were seeing proof of the death of Naruto. Only the appearance of a clone stopped Tsunade and Orochimaru from acting recklessly. I'm fine, the clone explained. We thought this might happen but assumed we had years yet. What happened and how are you alive? Tsunade asked in a near panic. My dad didn't seal the entire kyuubi into me, only half. He took the other half with him but someone he was freed from the Shinigami's stomach. Dead people can't be Jinchuriki and without the power of the Shinigami, the kyuubi's other half was going to always return. We had hoped it would simply return to the one in the seal but as you can see that hasn't happened. Why didn't you warn me? I thought I'd be Hokage by the time it came back. The Sanbi still hasn't returned and it's been 3 years. That's no excuse. You should have warned me even if it never happened. I know and I'm sorry. The original is going to deal with it but you have to keep the other ninja away. If they attack the kyuubi will as well. I'm going with the original, Orochimaru said. She was gone before the clone could argue against it. Tsunade ordered her Anbu to execute a village-wide lockdown. Kakashi moved through the streets, made all the more difficult by the pandemonium. The screams were deafening and the giant fox hadn't even done anything yet. Looking down at the village in mild confusion. That didn't matter. He knew a Jinchuriki couldn't survive the Baijuwu being extracted or otherwise leaving the seal. He cursed himself to failing once more but he had to find Naruto. It didn't know why but he needed to see his body with his own eyes. You shouldn't be going that way, Kakashi heard from an all too familiar voice. Naruto? Clone but yay. I'm alive and can handle the fox. Going there won't do you any good. Why are you doing this to us? A villager yelled at the clone and more people turned to look at him. Please make it stop? I have a family. We all do. Please. Look, just get to the shelters. This isn't something I'm doing. I'm not attacking the village. But the fox? All will be explained after the original me handles this. I won't let the village get wrecked. The clone saw the looks of skepticism but the ninja on the scene pushed them toward the shelters, while they wondered what to believe. Hiruzen and Jiraiya both were hurtling toward the fox, Jiraiya holding off on summoning Gamabunta in case Naruto needed to do so. However, the Toad Sage's progress was stopped when he saw a ninja attempting to attack clones of Naruto. Several yelling they had been right, the fox boy had simply bid his time to strike. None of them could touch the clones but they also couldn't attack without proving the deranged shinobi correct. Stop your attacks this instance, Jiraiya bellowed. Jiraiya-sama, he. Shut the hell up. If the fox were out of the seal Naruto's clones wouldn't exist because he'd be dead or dying. Then how? That's not your concern. Help people get to safety and await further instruction. And if I ever see you attack my godson again I'll kill you where you stand. Go, he barked. Thanks. No problem. You know if the original has a plan? Get him out of the village and try to talk things out. And if that doesn't work? Let's hope it does, the clone answered and Jiraiya returned to chasing toward the kyuubi at top speed. Somehow he managed to make it to the kyuubi's location at the same time as his sensei, who was decked out in battle armor. Each watched as Naruto held out his fist toward the Baijuwu. Said chakra beast seemed to consider the offer, instead deciding to slam down his hand on top of Naruto. They paled, fearful the fox had killed him. Elsewhere in the village Naruto was reassuring his sensei. Once she saw the kyuubi she'd gotten her shoes on, fully intending to go find Naruto. The Sandaime had told her what would happen should the kyuubi ever escape the seal, Naruto would die. She was met at the door by her student, or a clone. He quickly explained what was happening and while it didn't exactly comfort her, at least she knew he wasn't dead. He walked her back to her couch and remained. Most beings are not self-aware when they come into existence. Kurama was and while the experience was novel, it wouldn't recommend it. He'd returned, from the pit of the damned being trapped with that stupid Hokage. The man wasn't the worst company but he split the fox in half and that was just a dick move. Somehow, someone had undone the pact and they both left the Shinigama's stomach. He assumed that Minato bastard went to the Pure Land but he had to wait for his true return. Upon it he was greeted with wave after wave of negative emotions. He almost missed not having to suffer through that. He hadn't even done anything yet. Gaining back all of his senses, it was overwhelming. He remembered this location as the place he was sealed after spearing his former containers. And then a red-haired person appeared before him. The boy had hair like Kushina and he could sense his other half within him. The boy was weird. He couldn't sense any hate within him. Kurama had only known one person truly free of hate. Even Ashura wasn't completely free of it. Get him drunk and ask about Indra and you'd bear witness to it. Kurama had to test him to see if this was some trick. Without warning he tried to squash the boy. Before his hand could leave the ground he heard laughing in his ear. "That wasn't very nice, Kurama," he said, truly not upset at the Baijuu's show of force. "Would you mind going elsewhere so we can talk in private?" Kurama nodded and for the second time felt himself being teleported. "We're like 10 miles outside of the village. So, what's up? You are so casual with me? Have you and my other side truly formed such a bond? If you'd simply bumped fists with me, you'd have the answer to that and a lot of other questions. Instead, you try to squish me. Not cool. Neither is ripping me in half. True. Dad could have been a tad more humane in your treatment, but I'm not him. So, what's the plan, big guy?" "Excuse me? Your plan? I can't release your other half without dying, so I'm sorry, but reunification will have to wait. And I wouldn't recommend staying in the Land of Fire, but I do know somewhere I can take you. That fake Madara is still out there, though I wouldn't worry too much as he's living on borrowed time. You did not mention me entering your seal." "I didn't. Honestly, didn't think you would want to for any reason I could give. Also thought it'd set you off and I'd rather you remain calm." Kurama smiled at that. That was a wise decision. "If you channel my chakra, I would like to sync with my other half." Naruto leapt off Kurama and complied, creating the full chakra cloak. Orochimaru, Jiraiya, the Sandaime, Kakashi and a team of Anbu arriving just as Naruto activated the form. Even the non-sensors could feel the overwhelming presence of Naruto's chakra. Those that were sensors would describe it as endless, as if they'd been dropped into an ocean with no sense of surface nor bottom. The Baijuu in the container met fists and in a flash Kurama received his Yang half's memories and impressions. Once he'd absorbed the information, he looked at the Uzumaki, as if considering him for the first time. Could he be the one his old man had spoken about? Should he help just in case he was? The debate felt moot, his Yang half's impression so strong, his belief in his friend so sincere the Yin half couldn't argue with it. He knew what he was going to do, but he would make the boy earn it. "My other half has accepted you and I will as well. But you must earn my cooperation in the same manner you earned his, without his help." "I accept," Naruto shouted. He deactivated the cloak and walked over to the gathered ninja, assuming Jiraiya told them not to attack. "Hey, you all need to leave." "Naruto-kun, we will do no such thing," the Sandaime stated, firmly. "I don't have time for this. I've already beaten the Kyuubi once and I was weaker then. Besides, this one doesn't want to kill me, but it's going to be a massive fight regardless of what we do." "Alright, the kids got it handled, so let's go back and run damage control," Jiraiya ordered, but no one moved, which annoyed him. "Listen, not a damn one of you can fight the Kyuubi and you'd only get in the way." "Minato died sealing the Kyuubi, Jiraiya," the Sandaime yelled. "Minato isn't Naruto," Jiraiya responded. "We'd only be in the way." "Are you sure you can win?" Orochimaru asked Naruto, finally speaking. "Yes. It's just a spar anyway, no one's life is on the line if you all stay out of it." She accepted his reassurance, not knowing him to be arrogant or to overestimate himself. She also wouldn't deny there was a thrill in seeing her lover best a Baijuu by himself. "I won't leave because I want to see this. Besides, if you win I might do that thing I know you want but are too shy to ask for." Naruto couldn't fight the faint blush that colored his cheeks as he muttered a quiet awesome at the prospect. Once that moment passed, he decided to propose a solution. "Create a barrier. It'll help contain the damage and you can stay and watch, but you have to give us plenty of room." "Naruto-kun," the Sandaime started to say. "Just, for once, trust me." The Sandaime didn't have the heart to continue his protest, even if every fiber of his being felt this was a mistake. He simply nodded and got into position. Kakashi put his hand on Naruto's shoulder in silent encouragement before doing the same. "As for you Anbu, I'm not joking about not being in this barrier. If you get hurt that's on you, and if I find you I'll teleport you somewhere you don't want to be." As Naruto said that, it dawned on several people that the redhead had teleported the Kyuubi and must have known how to use the Hiraishin. They all wondered if that's why the young man was so confident. Naruto walked away from the onlookers and waited for them to get into position. In under a minute a barrier was erected, one Naruto recognized as the 4 Crimson Ray formation, something Tobirama-sama had left in his jutsu scroll. He didn't have time to be impressed as Kurama took advantage and quickly charged and fired a chakra blast, one just short of a Baijuu bomb. Naruto simply looked at the fast-moving energy beam and smirked. He continued to wait until he deemed the time right. Hiraishin no Jutsu version 3, he thought as he activated the technique and swapped places with Kurama. The Yin Kyuubi having no choice but to absorb his own attack, the powerful blast managing to topple the great fox. Naruto was not stationary, on the move as soon as he switched with Kurama. When he was within range he sped through hand signs performing the water style, Great Flood Jutsu. A massive amount of water emerged, all rushing toward a still off-balanced Kurama. The fox, annoyed at being subjected to his own attack, lashed out with one of his might tails, splitting the surge of water down the middle. His vision no longer obstructed, he watched as Naruto continued chaining hand signs. On instinct the strongest of the Baijuo rolled out of the way, narrowly avoiding two separate spiked glaciers posed to impale him. Naruto smiled, he expected his ice style, frozen torrent to hit the fox, but it appeared his time inactive hadn't left him rusty. Kurama rushed toward Naruto, his every step shook the very earth. Mid-stride, he ran his paw against the ground, overturning rock and uprooting trees as he swung the limb toward his opponent. Naruto dashed forward, dodging the debris while creating two shadow clones. Once that was done, the original activated his lightning style, red lightning armor, and closed the distance faster than Kurama anticipated. Naruto delivered a swift kick to the fox's snout. Kurama grimaced upon impact, swatting Naruto out of the air in retaliation. The Uzumaki flew back, impacting the ground with tremendous force, a crater forming as a testament to Kurama's strength. Naruto was fine, the lightning armor able to absorb blunt force, though the rapid change in elevation was disorienting. Not wanting to allow the Uzumaki a chance to attack, the Baijuo intended to pounce but was impeded by a series of steel chains wrapping themselves around him. He felt the cold steel wrap around his body, tightening with such force it was almost pulled completely to the ground. But he struggled mightily, bracing under the pull of the jutsu. The clone that performed the steel style, bindings of the underworld, wasn't done, and soon Kurama felt an intense shock. He refused to take his eyes off the original, so he missed the red lightning dragons traveling through the steel chains. Enduring the lightning style, ground dragon flash, and getting annoyed at being pushed by a Veilp, Kurama released a chakra shockwave, stopping Naruto's forward progress. A tail strong enough to level mountains crashed toward the clone, carving a trench into the earth. The clone managed to evade the lethal appendage, replacing himself with a log. The original dropped the lightning cloak as he surveyed the land. For such a short fight, the devastation was just short of awe-inspiring. If they were on Uzushio, he'd drag it out to give Kurama some more time to be free, but maintaining a barrier can burn through one's reserves faster than they'd expect, and if Kakashi were maintaining one side, then he may be nearing his limit. He watched as the fox arose to his full height. It really was awesome. No man-made monument or structure could compare. Naruto considered how things would have been if people hadn't reflexively feared or envied the Baijuo. If they were looked upon with wonder, instead. Maybe one day, he thought as he prepared himself to finish this. "It's time to end this, Kurama," he shouted, and the fox cracked a grin as he charged. Naruto met his charge, his pace increasing as his third clone dispelled, causing Naruto to slip into sage mode. He performed a sequence of hand signs Kurama knew well and hated dearly. Ox, horse, boar, snake. Wood style, wood golem jutsu, Naruto called out for effect. Kurama stopped his charge, choosing to charge a Baijuo bomb instead. He truly hated all things Makuten. However, his progress was halted when he felt himself once again teleported. This time he appeared in the sky and saw a clone on a clay bird giving him a cheeky grin. No time to even swat at the thing as the golem grabbed the proud fox and slammed him on his back. "Sage art, gracious deity gates," Naruto called from atop his wood construction. 9 gates appeared, crashing through the top of the barrier, each pinning a tail down to the ground. Now that the tails were controlled and Kurama was on his back, he could finish this. With but a thought, the golem loomed over Kurama and began to mercilessly tickle the massive chakra. Kurama fought it for as long as he could be. Sooner than he'd like, he began to laugh. "Ah ha 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 ha, stop it," he demanded. His voice deep and raspy. "You gotta give before I'll stop." "Ha ha ha, fine, ha ha ha, I give. You win, ha ha ha." As soon as Kurama conceded, Naruto stopped his assault, and removed the deity gates and dispelled the wood golem. Kurama returned to his feet, now towering over the boy that had just bested him. He could see Naruto smiling, not that he won but out of enjoyment. The Kyuubi held his fist out, certain this wouldn't be a mistake. Naruto reciprocated. The Uzumaki didn't fight the sensation of being engulfed by the red, bubbling chakra. He allowed it to enter his system, and once he was all absorbed, he stood still. It didn't take long to feel both halves of Kurama become one. Naruto smiled once more, his friend was whole again and got to play for a bit. It wasn't much, certainly less than the fox deserved, but he hoped it was something. He felt Kurama's agreement. As he looked around, he witnessed his clone already repairing much of the damage done. The biggest problem being the 2 ice constructs he created. Looks like the Land of Fire is about to get a new lake, Naruto thought. The Uzumaki started walking toward the village in moments the barrier was done and he was surrounded by the 8 onlookers. Jiraiya grabbed his godson and put him into a headlock. "See, sensei? I only train the best and it is only the methods of the gallant Jiraiya that would allow one to stand up to the Kyuubi," the Toad Sage exclaimed, holding up a peace sign with his free hand. "Yes, Jiraiya-kun, I'm sure you showed him to secrets of the Makuten," the Sandaime observed wryly, causing Jiraiya to deflate just a little. His concentration dipping, Naruto slipped out of the hold and pushed the larger man off him. "What the hell, man? Trying to make me look uncool, Dadabayo. Don't be so vain, brat. Your beloved sensei has just been attacked. A good student would defend my honor." "What honor, you shitty pervert? Stop bragging about stuff all the time and people wouldn't cut you down, T-Bio." The Anbu in attendance watched in disbelief as the teenager that just defeated the Kyuubi, using the Makuten no less, bickered with one of the Sannin like school children. "You know, Naruto-kun," Kakashi interrupted, "any chance you had at that spar went down the drain after what I just witnessed." "Come on, Kakashi-ni, don't be like that. We can keep it strictly taijutsu if you want," Naruto offered. Jiraiya's vehement head shake informed Kakashi that was still a bad idea. Ma, what about a thrilling game of rock, paper, scissors? Why are all the men in my life lame?" Naruto cried in mock distress. "Kukukaku, it's okay, Naruto-kun," the snake Sannin comforted, having slid right beside the red-haired shinobi. He favored her with a face-splitting grin. The Sandaime watched as the two slipped into an easy rapport. The very sight of it turned something in him sour. He thought back to Naruto's last words to him, "Just for once, trust me." Had that been a large part of his problem? How many people had counseled him, warned him, done all they could to deter him from continually trying to entrap his former student? Had he lost the ability to trust in the judgment of others? Had he truly become that arrogant? Consumed with his thoughts, the Sandaime didn't notice they had arrived at the village's gates. Scores of Konoha shinobi and civilians were present. The longtime Hokage watched as Naruto dodged a punch from Tsunade, retaliating with a hug and quiet words shared only between the two. He heard the last of the Senju inform Naruto several of the Hyuga were able to see and narrate the fight. She encouraged him to address the crowd, the panic having subsided. Naruto looked unsure, a sign of his lack of faith in the villagers, but Tsunade's resolve broke through. He watched as the young man took tentative steps towards the mass of people, all eyes on him. Nearly 17 years ago a tragedy befell the village. Many were lost, even more scarred physically and mentally by the event. What many didn't know was that day was supposed to be a happy one. The start of a family. It wouldn't happen. When a female Jinchuriki gives birth her seal weakens. A man claiming to be Madara Uchiha took advantage of that time and not even 10 minutes into the world he took me hostage. Forcing my father to protect me, this self-proclaimed Madara abducted my mother and released the Kyuubi upon the village. He then controlled the Kyuubi and made him attack. The rest most of you know. The fourth battled the Kyuubi and in his final act he sealed half of the chakra beast into himself and half into his son. Me. Naruto ignored the gasps heard throughout the crowd. The sealing jutsu my father used trapped him and his half of the Kyuubi within the stomach of the Shinigami. Somehow he was released from his eternal prison and allowed to go to the Pure Land. However, a dead person cannot contain a Baijuu and the yin half of the Kyuubi was released into the world. I didn't know how long it would take to reform. The Kyuubi had never been so injured he had to disperse. It was much faster than I anticipated. As the Hyuga clan told you, I'm sure, the free half of the Kyuubi agreed to enter the seal and I now contain the entirety of the fox. Knowing he did not attack of his own volition may not change how any of you view him. You may not be able to forgive his deeds. I won't fault you as, truthfully, I haven't forgiving many of you either, Naruto said. Much of the attendants looked down in shame, remembering how they ostracized the fox boy. How so many looked upon him in fear or disdain, wishing he'd simply stop existing. It shamed them to think this was the son of their great hero, a man many would openly venerate in front of the boy they would make a pariah. But I don't hate you. And even when I was at my lowest, my opinion about the village at its most negative, I never wanted to harm you, I simply wanted to be free of your antipathy. For better or worse, Konoha is my home. My family, my teammates and my sensei are here. My duty is to protect this village and I will do so to the best of my abilities. Maybe in time we can become something more and truly embody the will of fire the Hokage of the past and present extolled. I think I'd like that. Having said his piece, Naruto took Orochimaru by the hand and teleported away. He didn't hear Tsunade, Hiruzen and Jiraiya all confirming the parts of his story they could. He wouldn't have cared. The people either believed him or they didn't. He just wanted to be alone. In an instant they arrived at her door and Naruto felt her tense. He turned toward her and she looked concerned. He couldn't fathom why. Orochi-chan, what's wrong? I'm not surprised after what's happened it slipped your mind. The room Kabuto was trying to gain access to, I was going to show it to you and explain everything. If you don't want. I need to. You deserve to know. Just, however you respond, know nothing I did was to hurt you. The snake Sannin felt a pair of warm lips meet her own as her cheeks were cupped. It was a short kiss. More tender than what they normally shared, but the feeling of reassurance it sparked was welcomed. Whatever it is, it'll be okay, Naruto said. She nodded and led him to her office. She removed a book from a shelf against the back wall. The Way of Tea, Naruto realized and smiled. It was one of Anko's favorites. Orochi opened the book and placed her hand on a hidden seal, opening a secret door. Naruto continued to follow her down the stone corridor, and the stairwell until they reached the bottom. She activated another seal to open yet another door and sitting at a table was someone in a hooded robe. I guess it's about that time, the decidedly masculine voice said. Orochimaru didn't respond to him, addressing Naruto instead. Naruto-kun, this is Obito Uchiha but you'd know him by a different name, Madara. Orochimaru didn't know what to expect but if she were forced to guess at a response, laughter was not one of them. All that training I did to kill you and my girlfriend, apparently, kicked your ass, Dadabayo, he said, pointing at the Uchiha. Even Obito had to laugh at that. Chapter 19, History. Neji Hyuga walked through the village as he grappled with new information he couldn't quite understand. Individually, he could make sense of most of it but together it was an unsolvable puzzle. The fight between Naruto and the Kyuubi had been just within his range and he watched as someone a year younger than him had a spar with the strongest of the legendary chakra beasts. It looked closer to a boy playing with a pet than a battle to the death. If that were not enough, if Naruto being the victorious one wasn't inexplicable by itself, the prodigy Hyuga saw the Uzumaki use two bloodline limits, Hyotan and the legendary Mukuten. How? How was it possible to wield several bloodline limits? Was Naruto preternaturally gifted? A result of Orochimaru's experiments? Both? Even if he were the beneficiary of legendary genetics and or astounding scientific breakthroughs, the red-haired ninja still had to train those gifts, along with using a unique version of the Raikage's lightning armor. Powerful. He could not speak of the younger shinobi's talents but he knew power when he saw it. He'd chased it all his life. He'd considered himself the best of his generation, the Uchiha a close second. He'd chalked the Chunin exam's loss up to a fluke. After the fight with the Kyuubi, Neji couldn't delude himself any longer. While the battle with the giant fox was revealing, Naruto's words shook Neji just as much. The former branch member was able to conclude with no known heritage but his status as a container a widely known secret. The residents of Konoha were likely unwelcoming of the boy. He recalled what the Aburame said at that get-together and he was forced to admit the bug user had been correct. He only saw all Naruto had and never questioned what he'd lacked, what he'd lost. This left Neji perplexed. Fate was unchangeable and punished those that tried. When Neji first met the Uzumaki he assumed him a failure, or at best mediocre. Years later, after being trained by two of the Sannin, that same boy had demonstrated he was anything but average. What Neji couldn't decide was, which was Naruto's fate? The ostracized pariah or the powerhouse? He should not have been able to go from one to the other. Winners and losers were chosen at birth, this was an unassailable fact. By lineage, Naruto was a winner. By circumstance he was meant to be a loser. Which was fate's design? Why couldn't Neji understand it? Why couldn't he see it? How had he managed to seemingly fight fate? Or did he simply correct its altered course? The Hyuga didn't know. Hated not knowing. His all-seeing eyes meant he rarely had to languish in ignorance but he had no conclusions, only questions. Only the mystery that was Naruto Uzumaki. While Neji was trying to resolve his crisis of faith, Tsunade was busy staring daggers at Jiraiya and Hiruzen. Back in her office, after having plopped in her chair she couldn't bother to hide her anger and disappointment at the pair. She decided to start with Jiraiya. "What the fuck you stupid toady asshole," she shouted, vein bulging on her forehead. Just because it has toad in the word doesn't mean it fits now, Haim, Jiraiya remarked. He knew calming Tsunade down wasn't possible, so it was better to just let her boil over so they could actually talk. You dare get funny with me now? I should kick you so hard you see the curvature of the planet. That sounds painful, don't do that, Jiraiya responded neutrally, and as soon as the words left his mouth, Tsunade's fist went through her desk, followed by her grabbing him by the collar. You better watch it, Jiraiya. It's one thing for Sensei to be acting behind my back, I expect it, as he doesn't care about anyone's opinion but his own. She started and ignored how Hiruzen frowned at her assessment. But I trusted you to be straight with me and respect that I am Hokage. Tsunade, I do trust you. This wasn't an attempt to move around you. At best, I could tell you the sky would possibly fall someday at some point. And realistically, what could you have done to prepare for this that didn't end in hundreds or thousands of people dead? If any one of us would have attacked the Kyuubi, he would have retaliated in full force. If you had the idea to use Itachi or Sasuke, assuming they were comparable to Madara, or that he actually managed to suppress the Kyuubi with just his Sharingan, it would have been worse. Naruto told me himself, the fox hates the Uchiha. All of them, no exceptions. Tenzo, frankly, isn't strong enough to suppress a Baijuo, and the only seal users who could possibly come up with something are all redheads, and two of them fear Orochimaru more than you, the other one is sleeping with her. That last one took care of the issue, no one got hurt, and a lot of things that needed to be said were. Tsunade quickly considered his argument, and while she didn't have ready counters to most of it, it simply wasn't up to him to decide when he'd share a village-wide threat. Tsunade impressed upon Jiraiya that very fact, and he agreed and sincerely apologized. The Godime then moved on to Hiruzen. How much of your legacy, of your remaining time? How many of your relationships are you going to ruin trying to get back at Orochi? I told you I wouldn't tolerate you working behind my back, and you turned one of my ninja into a secret asset, spying on a high-ranking member of the village. You had no right. I had every right. You didn't have to sort through the dead babies like I did. You didn't have to chase her out of the village like I did. You just support her in this twisted relationship she has with Naruto-kun. You should be protecting him instead of encouraging this farce. So, knowing she hadn't changed, I enacted a plan. It didn't work, but I'm not wrong about her. You keep pushing and it isn't her you're going to have to deal with, Jiraiya observed, recalling the earlier conversation he had with his godson. Sensei, you're going to back Naruto into a corner, and I don't know why you can't see that. I'll make this as plain as I can, he just played with the Kyuubi. It took most of the senior ninja, you, Enma, Gamabunta, Minato and Kushina to restrain and seal it. What do you possibly think you can do to someone like that? You may think you're protecting Naruto, but he will protect Orochimaru. It's time to move on. Hiruzen was about to respond to his student but was cut off by Tsunade. Several of us have tried to talk you out of this vendetta, this quest to get her out of the village. You won't listen no matter how much it has cost you. You tried to kill her, Sensei. The daimyo could have had you executed. You had to resign in disgrace, and you'll never repair your relationship with Naruto. If I cut you out of village affairs completely, all your knowledge and experience would be wasted, but what else can I do? You're making it impossible for me to do anything but isolate you, place you under house arrest for the remainder of your days. Is that what you want? Of course not. But people don't simply change, Tsunade-chan. She's had designs on Naruto for years. Years. She's manipulated things, possibly him, for who knows how long? Do you believe they are anything approaching equals? He's an affection-starved young man, and she's used her wiles to exploit his weakness. Like she did with you being the implication? Tsunade asked. Is that the story you've been telling yourself? She seduced you? How do you know she didn't? Because I'm not fucking stupid, Sensei, Tsunade yelled. She took some calming breaths, forcing her anger away. It wouldn't do to beat her Sensei to death. This is getting us nowhere, but just know this is truly your final warning. Act against her again and I'll lock what's ever left of you in your compound. We still have one more issue. There is no way word won't get back to Ai and Aniki. Both men looked grim at Tsunade's words. Strength invites challenge, Jiraiya whispered, wondering if his final student was clairvoyant. What's that, Jiraiya? Something Naruto said earlier, strength invites challenge. The problem is, Naruto's known abilities simply give Aniki justification to do whatever it is he was already going to do. You likely won't know where he falls until the Chunin exams, Hiruzen remarked. Tsunade nodded in response but wished she had a better read on the fence-sitter. After his laughing fit ended, Naruto took a seat across from the murderer of his parents, the person that altered his very life course. Only the width of the stainless steel table separated the pair. Naruto studied the Uchiha's face. A mismatched pair of brown and green eyes would suggest someone had taken his Sharingan eyes from him. He had scarring on his face, clearly having suffered some major trauma. The man looked tired, or was it resigned, as if he had just accepted all that would come to him. The Uzumaki clan head didn't know what to say to the man. He never planned on talking to him, not even a witty remark as the man faded away. He was just going to kill him. But now? It wouldn't be unreasonable to assume he'd been subjected to some of Orochi's more questionable impulses. He looked broken, and while Naruto didn't care about his emotional state, it didn't leave him with a lot of motivation to strike the Uchiha down. Some might find it foolish that Naruto wasn't blindly driven by revenge, by all the pain this man caused him and all he took away. But to Naruto, that's exactly why he couldn't prioritize revenge. What could he do to the person that took his parents and caused the village to hate him, only to create an organization of monsters to one day hunt him down and kill him as well? To even get into the realm of retribution, Naruto reasoned, he'd have to bend the laws of space and time. True, he could just kill him now for his past actions. No one could possibly fault him, but it still felt hollow. He was prepared to neutralize a threat, and by all appearances it had been. Naruto had also felt for the Hiraishin marker his father had placed on the man, and it was still there. Once he'd reached for a marker, he simply didn't forget it, and this Obito person wouldn't get a normal Rasengan to the back this time. Why? Naruto finally asked. He didn't know if learning of this man's justifications would do anything but so much pain and misery. He simply had to know. The simple answer is a girl, Obito answered. If you rain destruction down on this village because you couldn't get a date, I'm going to kill you. It appeared he could find the motivation after all. Obito raised his arms in mock surrender. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't, despite what many may think. It was one of my Jinan teammates, along with Kakashi. You were one of my father's students? Naruto asked in surprise. He hadn't known that. Yes. Rin, my teammate, wasn't just some girl I had a crush on. For context, the Uchiha were not a well-liked clan during my childhood, and even amongst the Uchiha I was considered an oddball and a failure. I learned early that life could be mindlessly cruel. You know what, just hold out your fist, this will go faster, Naruto suggested as he became engulfed in Kurama's chakra cloak. The two men bumped fists and Naruto saw it all. Obito's childhood, his affection for and friendship with Rin, and rivalry with Kakashi. He saw how much the Uchiha respected his father and how he helped him deal with the frustrations of being in Kakashi's shadow. He saw the disastrous mission and the aftermath. He saw the real Madara play head games, and he watched Rin sacrifice herself. The emotion of the world coming apart at the seams was not one he could easily relate to. It was all-encompassing and infinite. Naruto watched the real Madara take a broken boy and warp him, shattering or perverting everything Obito believed in. He saw a boy become a young man, having given up on this world as meaningless. He watched the fateful night as master unknowingly squared off against student, and all the years after. The change of the Akatsuki, the havoc done to Kiri. It was a tale of misery and violence that left near everyone worse off in their wake. As the link was severed, Naruto deactivated the chakra mode and gathered himself. She made it all make sense. Yes. I believed the world could be good because she existed in it. Madara twisted me to his cause so thoroughly that any thought that what I was doing was dishonoring her never entered my mind. This world wasn't real, so none of it mattered, Obito explained. It was Orochimaru that helped me come to the realization that Madara likely set me up to see Rin die, knowing it had caused me to give up on everything. Naruto sat in silence, mulling over this new information. Obito had been a lonely kid that just wanted acknowledgement, and that was an incredibly familiar feeling. The Uzumaki couldn't ignore how the young man, a child still, was broken and manipulated by one of the greatest ninja to ever live. How he thought he was helping people to never truly experience what he had. Naruto couldn't relate to that level of despair, but he knew how hard he took it when he learned of Hinata's death and they hadn't been friends for years. Pain begets pain. He'd seen it with Obito, and even if she'd never admit it, Orochi-chan was caught in this cycle. Jiraiya wasn't wrong about the cycle of hatred. Revenge, the futile desire to even some non-existent cosmic balance when someone hurts you. Naruto never considered himself vengeful, but that was before he had to face himself, his long-buried hatred. A few different situations and he'd be what Obito was, someone with the justification to harm others and the permission to never feel guilty about it. So, what now? The special Jounin asked. Obito seemed surprised by the question, if the widening of his eyes were a reliable tell. I honestly don't know. I assumed you'd kill me without a second thought for what I'd done to you. Killing you wouldn't bring my parents back nor give me a happy childhood. Doesn't mean I forgive you or anything like that, but you dead does nothing for me. And I don't know if there is redemption for you, but there really isn't if you're dead. There isn't. Everything I've done. There's just no coming back from that. I accept it. The irony is that I was so dedicated to seeing Rin again in this world, I assured I won't in the next. No torture devised hurts more than that. Naruto wanted to tell Obito he was wrong, if not for the sake of the Uchiha then his own. He wanted to believe there was a chance to redeem, to make amends as long as you were alive to do so. But that inclination warred with the slights of his past. He hadn't forgiven the villagers, he hadn't forgiven the old man, and even with this new information he wasn't sure how he could truly forgive Obito. He didn't hate any of these parties, but true forgiveness and acceptance was a long way off. Questions with no easy answers swirled in his mind as he responded. I am credited with ending a rebellion in Iron Country. The chief architect, Ito Watanabe, trained me for a little while I was there. He spoke a lot about his late daughter, Zetsu, often. How when she was little she would proclaim she'd be the first female samurai of Iron Country. He said she was brave and headstrong. She wanted to choose her own destiny and not accept the rigid role assigned to her. They argued a lot about that, and he remained steadfast in his refusal to train her. He told me a lot about her but only revealed how she died the night before he rebelled. Some students he kicked out of the service paid him back by raping and killing her. Now, even with training, there was no guarantee that she would have survived, but with no training it was a certainty she wouldn't. It left him broken and he all but retired from his post, only training a select few students in a private school, Mifune allowing them to test into official service. He also became a champion for a more equal Iron Country, so much so it put him on the outs with Mifune. As he told me about his daughter's life, demise, and his change of heart, he also confessed the tremendous guilt he carried. He asked why did he have to lose his daughter to finally see her point? The next day I'm escorting Mifune's granddaughter, Tomoe, and we get surrounded by dozens of Ito's former and current students. They, calmly, say they deposing Mifune and as an outsider I can walk away. The subtext being that they were going to kill Tomoe. Backward-ass country. If they couldn't defeat Mifune outright, they were going to try to shame him into ritual suicide for failing to protect his family. So, here I was with a decision: allow this one innocent to be sacrificed for the potential of granting liberty and self-determination to countless others. I'm assuming you didn't leave her. I killed them all. But ninja arts are outlawed in Iron Country, even in defense of his granddaughter you'd have been arrested. Didn't use any ninja arts, just my sword. Anyway, after getting her protected, I tracked down Ito and we had a duel. What struck me was his smile, even as he lay dying. It makes me wonder if he knew this was the likely outcome. If I hadn't been willing to sacrifice one person, then he'd put me in the position to sacrifice many. Officially, I am a hero, but how many people see me as just another tool of their oppression? More concretely, how many more Zetsus will there be because I intervened and protected Tomoe? You can't think like that, Obito cautioned. You can't carry that weight. I never learned to harden my heart and it shattered when Rin died. I became a monster. But it's all linked. An endless web of action and consequence. That's mostly beside my point anyway. For some I am a hero. For others, possibly a villain. But the truth? Tomoe's governess turned attendant poisoned me earlier, the effects only kicking in once the fighting started. For most of it, I wasn't even seeing Tomoe anymore, not that I realized it at the time. Thanks to Kurama, the poison wasn't going to kill me, but it was a bitch of a handicap. So, not a hero. Not a villain. I was just a drugged 15-year-old doing the best I could. And that's probably the truth for all of us. We are neither the best nor the worst things we've ever done. You may believe redemption is impossible, and maybe it is. But wouldn't it be worth it to try to get as close to it as you can? Do as much good as possible to rebalance the scales? Naruto asked with a shrug. Whatever you land on, at least talk to Kakashi first. He deserves that much. Obito nodded and Naruto got up to depart, Orochimaru still standing in the doorway. As Naruto reached the exit, Obito asked a question: how did you find out you were hallucinating? You said you weren't even aware of it, so how did you come to realize it? The next day Tomoe came to bid Jiraiya and I farewell, neither wanting to stick around. As we were saying our goodbyes she asked me if I were really okay to travel. I assured her I was, but she didn't seem to believe me, so I asked why. She said that during the fight my attempts to be reassuring were a mixed bag because I was calling her some other girl's name. Naruto and Orochimaru departed, the mood quite somber. In an attempt to lighten the vibe, Orochi slides next to Naruto and kisses cheek. Startled, Naruto asks, "What was that for?" "Because clearly I was the woman you were hallucinating about." "Kukaku, my Naruto-kun is so gallant. Keep it up and I might swoon one day." Naruto chuckled before saying, "The one time I attempted to protect you I failed miserably and got my ass handed to me." "It's the thought that counts," Orochi responded. "You don't actually believe that," Naruto observed, finally eliciting a laugh from her. "No, but it sounded good." The couple returned to silence as they returned to her study. Once everything was sealed, Orochi led Naruto to her living room, both taking a seat on her couch. "I know you may have more questions," she started. "Like the pair of Sharingan you've been hiding? Certainly makes me feel better you tore through my genjutsu," Naruto said as he tickled her side. He didn't really care she had them. "I only implanted one into myself just in case you ever wanted an upgrade as well." "But not just that," Orochi paused. She wasn't used to feeling uneasy about things, but she had to admit it to herself. She cared what Naruto thought of her, and while she was confident she knew what lines not to cross, even a hint of disappointment would affect her more than she liked. "If I wasn't the person you were seeing in your poisoned state, then giving the timing I can guess who it was, so let's start there." "Naruto-kun, he not is alive. How does anyone stand this heat?" Tsunade questioned as she and her party neared the entrance of Suna. The weeks since the second Kyuubi incident had passed in a blink of the eye. Things in the village returned to normal, except for the rise of a new celebrity in Naruto. Speaking of her nephew, as punishment for withholding information about the Kyuubi, she lowered the price for his instruction. Anyone with the equivalent payout of a D-rank mission could get the son of the Yondaime to teach them Nin, Gen, Ken, or Taijutsu, and he could not use shadow clones to fulfill the requests nor shortchange Hanabi. True, she only keep it at that price point for 3 weeks, but the lesson was learned. "You can regulate your body temperature, so you're only complaining about the idea of the heat, Tsunade-chan," Orochi pointed out, teasingly. She and Kakashi were covered in tan, lightweight cloaks and shemagh. Tsunade was in traditional red and white Hokage robes with the diamond-shaped hat to match. The god-ime ignored her friend, feeling it was her right to complain about the desert heat regardless of how affected she actually was by it. The trio approached the valley entrance and were greeted by Temari. After an exchange of pleasantries and a security check, they were escorted to the arena. Orochi noticed the village was in much better condition compared to the last time she was here. What really stood out was a lush and green oasis with fruit-bearing trees and various ponds. It was, apparently, treated as a playground as children were seen throughout. Tsunade noticed the environmental anomaly as well. "I haven't been inside Suna in a number of years, but that oasis looks newish, Temari-san." "Oh, yes, God-ime-sama. It was a gift to Suna." "Who could gift such a thing?" the god-ime inquired. "No one but Kazekage-sama knows. It simply appeared one night. Kazekage-sama said it was from a personal friend and left it at that." That wasn't remotely true. Everyone in Suna knew who made it, just like they all knew who Gaara's only acknowledged friend was, but unlike some villages, the residents of Suna knew how to keep their mouths closed. Arriving to the arena, Temari walked the Konoha Nin to location of the other cage. The area was open except for a sandstone ceiling, offering shade and temperature control. Temari introduced Tsunade and took her position behind Gaara, along with Baki. All 5 cage were in attendance, Gaara and Tsunade having worked out her arriving last. It was meant to send a subtle message that Gaara didn't require his closest ally in attendance with the other cage present, as the young wind shadow stood on his own. Tsunade took her seat as her party got into position, having removed their travel wear. "You cut it awfully close, Tsunade-hime," Aniki said, a mocking tone to his voice. "That's the arrogance of Konoha ninja. Even their pissy brat Jinan have it while having accomplished nothing," Abe barked, his head resting on top one of his hands. Tsunade chose to ignore the rakage. "I'm sure you understand a ninja should neither be too early nor too late, Tsuchikage Dono," Tsunade responded. The fence-sitter said nothing in retort. "I have to admit, Tsunade-sama, I am disappointed your delegation didn't include Naruto Uzumaki. I understand him to have several treasures of Kiri and would love to work out a fair exchange. Item by item if need be," the god-ime Mizukage purred. Tsunade could sense a slight tensing behind her and hoped Orochimaru wouldn't reveal herself to be a jealous girlfriend now of all times. "I hear the brat isn't allowed out of the sights of Jiraiya. How that boy going to ever be a man if you keep a minder on him? I am sure Naruto would be flattered by your interest in his development, Rakage Dono." As far as these Kiri treasures, I know not of what you speak, but if you would like to present a formal request I will, of course, give it all due consideration, Mizukage Dono. Mei simply smiled, having gotten the answer she expected. A tightened his grip on his chair and clenched his jaw, angered at having been dismissed again. Although, I also hear whispers that he has the most potential of any shinobi of any village since the Shodai Hokage himself. Defeated the very Kyuubi Minato was said to have killed with no help from anyone. Konoha is just a factory for genius ninja. Was there a point, Reikage Dono? Just remarking on your village's ability to churn out bullshit Superman stories about your alleged prodigies while you hide them away. At least Minato was out in the field so I could take his measure. Kukaku, from my understanding it was Minato-kun who took yours, Orochimaru retorted, much to the ire of Kumo's leader. Whatever stories you may have heard and however they have come to be, you must choose for yourself whether or not to believe them. We in Konoha like to concern ourselves with ourselves, Tsunade added. History would tell another story, Aniki countered, referencing Konoha's participation in all three shinobi wars. With the exchange having died down, Gaara called an official start to the finals. As the five shadows of the ninja world watched a proxy for war, several could only think about the real thing. And while they were preoccupied with the thoughts of war, their seconds were vigilant for any signs of aggression. All except one. The most infamous woman in the hidden villages wasn't concerned with war or children exchanging love taps. She only wanted to get this trip over with so she could share the good news. Tsunade confirmed herself, 8 weeks along. Naruto-kun would have an heir, a child of his own. And she'd tap into previously unexplored reserves of cruelty and sadism if anyone should attempt to harm his child. It was a promise of a lifetime. Chapter 20, Break You Off. Frail and defeated were a far cry from how Shino had started his day. He was so confident in his victory, that Konoha would burn under his superior might, intelligence, and technology. It had all gone so smoothly it felt like fate. And thanks to Zetsu, he even had enough information to reliably target Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. His longtime associate never revealed why he wanted them to die in particular, but it didn't matter, as he was going to have as many Konoha killed as possible anyway. It all went wrong. The Sky Fortress was infiltrated and his ninja killed before initial takeoff. The Uzumaki and a Hyuga took turns dismantling him, showing him that rapid regeneration wasn't always a boon. He was stabbed and cut repeatedly. Burned. Electrocuted. Drowned. Made paralyzed by gentle fist strikes. The Uzumaki sealed the Zero Tails as if it were a mere academy exercise. With the Zero Tails gone and his chakra system compromised, Shino had to suffer through a genjutsu of being torn apart by panthers under a blood-red moon. His current location was interrogation as, he assumed, the village's best went to work. He'd already given up A and Zetsu's involvement. He didn't know what more they wanted, but the purple-haired woman just wouldn't leave him be. He was so tired and his once muscular frame had withered to near nothingness. What more do you want? He asked. Oh, I'm just curious about something. Seems like you could have been taken in without much fuss, but those two boys worked you over. So, what did you do to piss one or both of them off? Shino groaned at the memory. A piece of intel Zetsu had given him about the Uzumaki's relationship with his former associate, Orochimaru. He goaded the boy, suggesting there was more to their relationship than was true. By the time he said she'd do anything for an immortality jutsu, he felt a sword through his heart. He dropped to the ground in shock, and when he looked up, those blue eyes weren't even angry. They were filled with pity. The Uzumaki then said something to the Hyuga about assholes always making things personal and never knowing when to shut up. Shino was a smart man and had no intention of repeating what he said to Orochimaru's sadistic student. Anko laughed at his silence as she resolved to get the full story from Naruto when he got back. Kirabai? Yugito called, attempting to get her fellow Jinchuriki's attention. He seemed not distracted but lost or in a state of disbelief. They were currently in the land of rivers, as B insisted they come support Reikage-sama's planned ambush. It was unusual for him to be so serious. Yo, where's Big Bro's main man to carry out the master plan? He inquired. She couldn't answer that his Dodai should have been here, along with 100 other ninja assigned. But there were also no signs of combat, the scene looked undisturbed. Pristine. Almost perfect. She looked at Kirabai in shock as the real meaning of his question sank in. You think Konoha and Orsuna intercepted Dodai's ambush and cleaned up to this extent? Mr. 9-0 applied the pressure and let the pipe burst, treated our best like they were light work. Mighty 8 senses is bro, the Uzumaki's a pro. Yugito scowled at some of her comrades seemingly being wiped out by one boy without a trace. It made everything Asama said about him seem true. Konoha had prepped a secret weapon with a grudge against Kumo. It also suggested the attack on Konoha failed or the Uzumaki would have been otherwise occupied. They had tipped their hand and were now fully exposed. Do we try to catch him? Yugito asked. B didn't answer immediately as he mulled over their options. Crossing into the land of wind would be seen as an act of war, and while they had all but declared as much against Konoha, they had not with Suna. However, if his brother learned the ambush failed and Dodai was killed, he would react with pure emotion, namely rage. He didn't know if his brother could best two of the Sannin and Hatake Kakashi, but he knew he couldn't handle all three of the in Konoha's Jinchuriki. It wasn't even about which was the smart move, there were none. But deciding the least bad option. A sense of dread originated in his stomach and spread ever so slowly throughout his body. B feared today may be a watershed, that something irrevocable may happen. If that were the case, then he needed to be by his brother's side, because whatever his faults, that was still his family. We creep on the low but push hard in case big bro blows. Yugito nodded and the pair departed without further delay. A noticed she subtly stiffen. Asai, his Senior Nin, had become alerted to something concerning. The second of his escort duo was no coward, so for something to worry him, even slightly, was worth paying attention to. A low-level drone pulled away the Kazekage's sister, the snake Sannin following behind her. He felt the need to at least mention this, as if this were a hit, he'd let them know they'd hidden it poorly. Aniki was simply quicker. My, the two allied nations' escorts seemed to be departing. One might assume something nefarious, Kazekage Dono. I assure you I wish none here any harm. And you, Tsunade Heim? You allow the snake free rein, should we ready for battle? If you aren't always ready for battle, Aniki Dono, I'd suggest you retire. Any follow-up response by Aniki was cut off by the snicker of the Mizukage and the return of the Kazekage's sister and Orochimaru, the snake Sannin smiling from ear to ear. The wind mistress approached Gaara, whispering something A could not hear, and watched the child cage nod. The girl departed briefly but returned with a guest in tow. Uzumaki Naruto. It was Ai's turn to stiffen. The attack on Konoha was scheduled for today, and he was sure the brat hadn't been allowed out of the village since his return. Either Shino crossed him or something went wrong. Honestly, A just wanted the delusional man to cause a lot of structural damage, so he hoped the fool managed that. No, what truly concerned him was the contingent of 100 Jonin shinobi he had stationed in the land of rivers led by his attendant, Dodai. The boy didn't have a scratch on him, and while that could be explained as far as wounds, even his clothes were pristine. A gritted his teeth. It was highly unlikely he managed to avoid his ninja. More than likely Minato's bastard killed them and then strolled into Suna as if nothing had occurred. A took the briefest moment to acknowledge the sacrifice of his ninja and the loss of his loyal companion. Dodai would be dearly missed. A was afforded this show of reverence, even if hidden, because all eyes drifted to the red-haired shinobi. They watched as Gaara stood up and greeted his fellow container as a friend and an equal, a handshake and a half-hug followed by words of welcome. Naruto greeted the rest of the cage, begging their forgiveness for the intrusion. With no additional seating, Kankuro offered his place and left the viewing area. A finally took a good look at the young man, not having seen any updated pictures of him besides what Raza provided. Jiraiya had been maddeningly efficient in neutralizing all of Ai's intelligence agents, killing each one until A simply stopped sending them. The Toad Sannin hadn't lost a step, and it frustrated the Raikage greatly. Decent height for his age, toned but nothing too impressive. The boy had too much of his mother in him, looking very little like his rival in speed. But what A noticed, and detested the most, was the boy's ease. All five cage and this child that has never seen true war stands amongst them as an unspoken equal. The very thought made the Raikage's blood boil. Then A remembered Dodai. He was too seasoned to believe his man wasn't dead, killed by a mere child who now stands in the same room as A as if he's done nothing. Or as if A could do nothing to him. Arrogant. Gallingly arrogant. A barely pays attention to the rest of the exams. Children slap boxing holds no interest. He needed an outlet for his rage and grief. He needed to take action, but his current circumstances demanded he temper his natural inclinations. The exams ended and the boy cage gave a speech before closing out the ceremonies. A was ushered into what passed for quality accommodations in Suna. The Sand Rat had requested the cage and their parties attend a banquet before they departed, starting 2 hours after the end of the exams. He needed to think, he needed to plan. Naruto gave Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Kakashi a full accounting of events that transpired to bring him to Suna, and the Godime was furious. At herself for believing A would attack Otto first. It was too indirect for him and she'd been too clever by half and put her village at risk. At A for both planned attacks. And for her favorite Gaki. She saw it in his eyes, the kind of tired that wasn't of the body nor the mind. Just the weight of death and having delivered a great deal of it. Few truly knew what that felt like. Even fewer knew what it was to be able to kill some of the best of the elemental nations before they could even attempt to fight, surrender, run away or call for help. With all the training they do to perfect being assassins, striking enemies where they are most vulnerable, there is still something about the challenge of a fight that gives one a sense of honor, of humanity. When that challenge is gone you can start to feel like a butcher. She'd seen that look on Jiraiya's face before he took in the Ame trio. She'd seen it in her own eyes. "Are you okay?" she heard Kakashi ask. Naruto initially shrugged in response, but the five eyes on him demanded an actual response. "It is what it is. They were there for a tussle, they got one. I'm not going to sink into the pits of despair over it," Naruto said, pouring himself a glass of water. All watched as a layer of frost enveloped the glass before he took a drink. Tsunade knew that wasn't really the truth, and yet, it wasn't a lie but a resolution to endure. More importantly, what is to be done about A? Kukaku, clearly he doesn't return to Kumo. Nor his escorts. Orochi chimed in. Tsunade didn't immediately respond. Her fellow Sannin wasn't wrong. A had to die, it was the removal of a potential reasonable actor, Daru, that bothered her. Well, one of the things. That could get messy, Kakashi added but didn't disagree. A played his hand and was exposed that didn't go unpunished. "I can do it clean, and being in two places at once is no problem," Naruto said after taking another drink, savoring the cold liquid. "No chance for an ambush, she is a censor. He made you before any of us knew you were here," said Kakashi. "That's fine. Besides, A knows. If what I've been told about him is true, he'll want to show it down so the censor will do half my job for me." "I could go as additional backup," Orochi offered. "No," Tsunade said, voice firm indicating there would be no argument. "Orochi, I need you with me as we go back with our participants." The two males in the room could tell that wasn't the whole truth but let it drop when Orochimaru didn't protest. "So, do I have the all clear? Let's see how this dinner plays out. If Iwa has sided with Kumo they may reveal it there. If so, Aniki needs to also be dealt with. Could you handle that, Naruto?" "Yes." "What's wrong, old man?" Kurotsuchi asked. Her grandfather had been pacing since they entered their suite and hadn't stopped. She'd withheld asking until the rooms were thoroughly swept and she was reasonably sure it was safe to speak. "A was angered when the Uzumaki joined us. That by itself means very little. The man has been preparing for war against Konoha and using Minato's boy as a propaganda tool from the start. No, it wasn't the anger that vexes me," Aniki explained as he continued to pace. He thought back to Ai's expression, the slight widening of the eyes, rapid blinking followed thereafter. Then the anger sat in. Of all the sitting cage, he was the worst at hiding his emotions, having always led by strength and strength alone. He was surprised. Before anything else, he was surprised the boy was there. "That's not so shocking, Aniki-sama. You don't expect a Jinchuriki to just show up somewhere," Akatsuchi reasoned. "No, I don't think that's it. It is well known the Kazekage and the Uzumaki are friends. I think A has something planned and the boy being here jeopardizes it. There may be an opportunity here. If I's little scheme fails then it is possible he will fall. If he dies that increases our bargaining power and we could cut a great deal with the newest rakeage. If any or all of the Konoha party dies then it's war and we let the two fight it out and potentially pick the scraps. Maybe an alliance with Kiri to target the weakest village. Maybe add Suna as well. If both A and the Namikaze Hellspawn were to perish then wouldn't that just be a reason to celebrate? Both villages dropping in power and prestige. A power vacuum would serve us well. Set us up nicely for the future," the old man muttered. "Yay, but what if the entire Kumo delegation dies? Then the new rakeage would likely be that insufferable Kiribai and he isn't fit for the job but also won't be moved to fight out a vengeance. We need Daru to survive." "If the rakeage dies?" Kurotsuchi asked. Aniki nodded and neither of his companions said anything more but Kurotsuchi thought her grandfather made things needlessly complex with his waffling for an advantage. She held no love for any village but her own and detested the yellow flash like all right-thinking Iwan Nin, but the benefits of war seemed way too hypothetical and abstract to her. Kumo had already shown itself to be untrustworthy when they tried to kidnap the Hyuga heiress, regardless of how A tried to spin it. She worried her grandfather was moving past aged wisdom to the realm of a relic unable to contend with or absorb new ways of thinking. We really need to get our intelligence network up to par, Mei said in frustration. Like the other cage, she saw Ai's reaction and knew something was awry. The problem was, what information she had was so sparse she could do little but speculate. And while it wouldn't serve her to be ignorant of the tensions of the other villages, it was of no great value to get involved. Kiri wasn't weak, but it was not the time to test its hard-won stability, not unless absolutely necessary. Maybe there would be a play, some advantage to exploit, but from where Mei sat doing nothing was the correct course for now. Things may come to a head tonight. Stay diligent, but do not make unnecessary moves. Let these mainlanders handle their own problems, as of right now none of them are active threats to Kiri. The Uzumaki clan head with several of our famed swords suggests otherwise, Mei-sama, Ao remarked. Well, he seems like a reasonable, young man. I'm sure he and I could reach a satisfactory agreement given the chance. Oh, or I could challenge him, Mei-sama, Chojuro offered. Why use violence when words will suffice, Chojuro-kun? And Ao, I doubt he holds a grudge for actions committed generations before he was ever born. He wasn't raised in Uzumaki, so he wasn't taught to hate us, I bet. If something does happen, Mei-sama, what would you have us do? Chojuro asked. Nothing, stay out of it. And until something does happen, we will match the graciousness shown to us by our host. A was pacing across the room, and that was never a good sign. His heavy footsteps adding a slight tremor to the ground. Now free of enemy eyes, the large cage was venting his anger with abandon. The little shit, he yelled as he clenched his fists. He killed Dodai, killed our ambush unit. Son of a whore. And now they plot. I guarantee they're planning to take us out. A-sama, we don't know Dodai is dead. We don't know anything. Maybe he used the Hiraishin to get here and left before the attack on Konoha ever started. You don't even believe that, A bellowed to his second in command. Daru merely adjusted in his seat. A wasn't wrong, he didn't believe that, but it was also true they had no confirmation about anything. He was simply advising restraint. Reikage-sama, we're currently at a disadvantage and we have to assume the Konoha contingent plans to act. Maybe we should slip out tonight and not give them the chance, she suggested. Run, A yelled. You expect me to run from them? Yes, run. Because this isn't about your ego, Daru cut in, losing his patience. You said you'd lead Kumo to greater heights, that we'd finally be free to be what we were always meant to be. Fine then, but you have to be alive. Revenge will have to wait. You never understood, Daru. You're so used to the status quo you can't even see the effects. I'm done letting Konoha decide. I'm done tailoring my actions to them. Kumo is the strongest village, I am the strongest cage, and when I say I will avenge my ninja I will do so. Tsunade, Orochimaru, Kakashi, and the brat die. It's just that simple. But you too will leave tonight along with our participants. Don't stop, don't look back. Gaara quickly read over the note that was delivered to him by the panther cub. His facial expression remained passive, betraying none of his thoughts. It wasn't good. He'd hoped this could be the start of something different, a break from the cycle of bloodletting that only justified more of the same. But A had attempted to attack Konoha, planned to assassinate Tsunade and company. That couldn't be overlooked, especially not by Konoha. Known as the peaceful village, they still had to remind the other villages their cooperative streak had limits. Thank you, little one, Gaara said as he scratched the summons under its chin, gaining a purr-in response. The courier dispelled and Gaara turned to his siblings and explained the contents of the letter. Whatever is to happen won't happen here, of that I am certain, but it appears we must ready for war in earnest. Tamari and Kankuro both frowned. War was such a heavy word and an experience none of the trio had, something that could not be said for the other major villages. Training and education can take one far, but they knew there were limitations, and this was not something you generally wanted to do while learning on the job. Shit, Kankuro exclaimed. Is there a way out, a way to resolve this? Gaara shook his head. Even if A were willing to deal, and there would be no reason for Tsunade to believe it nor ignore what he'd been planning. Unless he was willing to submit a significant form of restitution, but it was highly unlikely. Gaara would continue on, however. Maybe things wouldn't change tonight, but it could be a step toward progress. We only have about an hour before dinner is to begin. If you would both oversee the final arrangements, I need to finalize my own. His siblings acquiesced and departed Gaara's office. The hour quickly passed and the Gokage and their guards, plus Naruto, were seated at the large circular table as several servers in service whites brought out the first course of the kaiseki. As the appetizers were sat and the waitstaff exited, all waited as Gaara shared some words. I appreciate you all for indulging my request and not immediately returning to your villages. For too long, the 5 great shinobi villages have been separated and mistrustful, only forging alliances to better fight our wars. I do not believe that can be solved over one meal, but I hope it can, and you will allow it to be a start. The grudges of old limit us. With that being said, please enjoy. Murmurs of appreciation fill the room, then the attendees begin their meals in earnest. Mei was surprised by the colorful array of small dishes arranged on her plate, having assumed the desert village wouldn't be so bountiful. More courses were brought out as polite conversation was had. This seemed to offend A as he decided during the Futamono course to speak for the first time. So, you want to cement our stagnation into an alliance, Kazekage? Everyone took notice of his disrespect. If we are stagnating, how could continuing to do as we've done solve it? Gaara asked, choosing to ignore the slight. That's simple, we allow the strong to prove out and rule. Because strength is what determines our course. Not politics and backroom trade deals. Power, the ability to make one act against their own interests outside of their own volition. Everything else is just window dressing. Sounds like chaos, the weak constantly seeking to unseat the strong. How would that be an improvement, Raikage-sama? Mei asked. If you can't control your people, you shouldn't lead your people. If you can't keep your village, you shouldn't have it. In the warring clans era, we lost the weaker clans. And all the potential within them, not to mention all the talent untapped by non-clan ninja. Romanticizing the past doesn't help us progress, Tsunade said. Kukaku, besides, by that logic Konoha should be the only remaining hidden village. Would you have preferred us to have slaughtered all of Kumo? Orochimaru added and took delight in Ai's frown. You would have failed if you tried, but what came of any of the wars we waged? Nothing. Nothing fundamentally changed because Konoha will only allow their vision of growth while stamping down anything that threatens it. You win wars because you fight to outlast your enemy, not actually defeat them. The Sandaime called off Minato when he had Iwa under his sandals. And what, you expect to do something similar with his bastard? A finished by staring at Naruto, a Naruto more interested in his soup than the ravings of a soon-to-be dead man. Can he even speak without permission? If you think he is what Minato had, you're deluded. You're very loud. So he does speak. Tell me, boy, do you think you are your father's equal? I honestly don't see how that's a concern of someone who decidedly wasn't my father's equal. 9 may not equal 10, but it's still greater than 7 last I checked. Daru and she tensed when they saw the scowl on Ai's face. The man looked ready to attack. And in truth, he wanted to. A wanted to say damn the consequences and murder the arrogant brat. Kill each of them, let them see how powerless they would be against his lightning armor and his speed. But now wasn't the time. He couldn't enjoy it here. It's interesting you say that, as in a different world I could have been your father. How about that? Matter of fact, I'll sign a peace treaty right now if you call me Ato-sama. Come on, say it. Naruto took it as a sign of maturity that he hadn't murdered Daru, and she as a matter of reflex. He considered it a mark of personal growth. Oh, he was furious. That this man would call attention to the attempted kidnapping, that would have no doubt led to repeated bouts of sexual violation, to goad him was beyond anger-inducing. But he had his mission and it was not the time to act. However, A would have to be punished. Somewhat surprising you don't have a child of your own, a man of your age. I guess manners weren't the only thing Dodai failed to teach you. Maybe he can try again once you return to Kumo. A didn't know what angered him more, the boy having the balls to taunt him or the bored look the little bastard was giving him as he said it. A felt a hand on his shoulder just as his rage was nearing its zenith. He turned and saw Daru trying to silently communicate an obvious truth: it wasn't the time. But it would be, soon. He'd put the Uzumaki through the ringer and show him what a true cage fought like. Then he'd end his life and the rest of them. Eventually, all of Konoha. None of them were a match for B and him. Only the surety of his future victory stayed his hand. The boy would have won last night. His discourteousness aside, the Raikage has a point. Shinobi alliance work when there is a mutual enemy, not when created to avoid one. The very idea that any of us would permanently join some kind of agreement that reduced our authority for some nebulous benefit in the future is absurd. I don't like war, I've seen more of it than any in this room, but words are cheap. Our actions are what carry real value, and if it must be war, then it must. Getting too comfortable in an alliance is just asking to be taken advantage of eventually. If you lack honor, you cannot see it in others, Aniki Dono, Tsunade said. Our actions only carry weight because of the death we cause, no more and no less. If you treat an agreement as just a maneuver, then that's all it can be. The question is, what do you want specifically? And how can war gain it? I want an end to Konoha's continental hegemonic order, A said. Good luck with that, Tsunade said with a snort. Soon talks cooled down and returned to polite topics, but the tension never fully left, as all knew one wrong word could spark conflict. Fortunately, the dinner ended without incident and all returned to their rooms. Well, all but one, as Kakashi was currently looking at a closed, locked and sealed door to what was to be his room for the night. It had been unyouthfully commandeered by Naruto and Orochimaru, neither making a secret of what was to transpire. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head and looked toward Tsunade, who only rolled her eyes. Fine, brat, but don't get any ideas or you'll be introduced to a game I call Kakashi Ball. Got it? She said as she entered her room, Kakashi not far behind. Ma, Tsunade-sama, I would never try anything untoward. Aha. You'll be taking the couch. I wouldn't have it any other way. As Tsunade and Kakashi were settling into their temporary arrangement, Orochi pushed her lover against the door as soon as she was sure their privacy was protected. Eagerly, she pulled him down into a kiss, briefly realizing he'd grown a little. Her finger assaulted his clothing, she dispatching it with the same ruthless efficiency she would any other enemy that stood in her way. His armor, shirt, and mesh were quickly removed before he returned the favor, or removing her kimono. A blink of an eye, or at least that's how long it felt before they were in the shower, exchanged long kisses and exploring each other's bodies. Until Naruto settled on her most sensitive area, going over it in slow, circular motions with his middle finger. Gradually the speed and pressure would increase until she was experienced her first climax of the night. Time went hazy again as she came down from her orgasm, as they were now in bed. Naruto was content to pay further attention to the same area, this time utilizing his tongue as Orochi ran her fingers through his crimson locks. And again she was brought to climax, the events of the night decidedly not in her original plan, as she was to be in control. But it was a wonderful derailment, and she'd have allowed it to continue if not for the cocky grin adorning her lover's face. That simply wouldn't do. With ease, she reversed their positions and straddled the object of her obsession. She smiled when she heard a familiar moan. Not so smug now, Naruto-kun, she thought as she watched his eyes shut tightly in response to her machinations. It was her turn to don a smirk as she rode Naruto, putting the durability of the bed to the test. Orochi kept her pace, even as Naruto sat up and pulled her toward his body, his breathing labored. They soon found their mutual release and shared a final kiss before parting. Lying on his chest, Orochi heard Naruto chuckle at seemingly nothing. She looked up, her yellow orbs expressing the unasked question. Naruto, looking down at her, understood. I love you, you know, he said, and laughed again when she went wide-eyed. I'm not saying it so you will or for any reason other than it's the truth, and I want you to know, T-by-O, he assured her. Even with his reassurance, Orochi was thrown for a loop. She never thought of her relationships in terms of love. Sure, she'd do anything for Tsunade and Koharu as they would do the same for her and helped her when she was younger manage her impulses. Was that love? They'd never said it. Had they assumed she knew or that she wouldn't care? But even in comparison, she knew Naruto was different. The potential life growing in her womb was a testament to that. Was that love? She'd known for some time he'd be hers, that he was already interested only eased things along. He was to be hers, and in exchange, she'd see to his happiness and the safety of what he valued. It was a perk of not fighting his fate. Yes, he made her happy. He challenged her to grow, to consider things in ways she'd never have before. Even Jiraiya's crappy belief in peace sounds more reasonable coming from Naruto. Yes, his smile often makes her feel funny, and when hugs her from behind and lightly kisses her neck her pulse would quicken. Those were just biological responses. Sure, she could enjoy his company even if they were just quietly reading, her feet propped up on his lap. And yes, she'd willingly subject her body to the trauma that is pregnancy to give him a child. But that was only because she was high. Orochi's thought process halted. Did she really see herself that way? She'd need to talk to Tsunade, she was sappy and would know. Besides, it was time to share the good news. Naruto-kun, can you enter Sage Mode? She requested. He nodded, having given her time to sort out her thoughts and not taking her silence personally at all. As if he were born to it, Naruto allowed the surrounding natural energy to enter his chakra system, instantly balancing it with his own source of power. For one who has never experienced Sage Mode, it was almost indescribable, the sensation of being connected to and aware of life. Its beauty, its flaws and all the complexities therein. And it happened so fast. The serene mindset allowed a sage to not be overwhelmed by the onslaught of new information. Taking a deep breath, Naruto narrowed his focus to his immediate surroundings, to Orochi and himself. And a partial presence. Not fully life, slighter. Like Kurenai-sensei when he remotely checks on her, but even fainter. Naruto was now the one to go wide-eyed as his toad-like eyes stared into Orochi's slitted pupils. She nodded at his unasked question and found herself in a tight embrace, though not enough to cause any pain, with her maelstrom, thanking her. "How far are you along? Is this why Oba-chan didn't want you to come with me to face A? When can we know the sex?" "Kukaku, calm down, Naruto-kun," she said, not having seen him this excited since before his training trip. 8 weeks, yes, another 8 to 12 weeks. This is so awesome. I can't wait to tell Shika, Shino, and Kurenai-sensei, although, can we wait until after she has her baby? I don't want to steal her thunder, T-by-o. Of course, Naruto-kun. She's due soon, so it's no problem to wait. You know, you're really throwing my grand seduction plan out of whack, Orochi-chan. I thought it was a plan to woo me, she said with a teasing grin. Naruto shared it before it dropped. Shit, he said. A isn't in the village. Damn it, I have to run them down, he said as he got out of bed. He channeled chakra to his right hand and placed it over his left pec. A seal activated and he was fully dressed and armed. Naruto quickly activated another seal on his left wrist as he approached Orochi, kissing her deeply and placing an object in her hand. Think about it and give me your answer later, he said as he dashed out the window, his sage mode buttressing his already impressive speed. Orochi opened her hand and found a black ring box. Once he was out of the village, Naruto performed an impressively long shunshine. And another and another. Until he was standing in front of the 2 large chakra signatures he'd sensed. He knew the 2, they were well known as Kumo's guardians, Kirabai and Yugito ni. Naruto was surprised. Not to see them, that was whatever, no, it was something else entirely. I'm not surprised your Raikage is a coward, but I am a little shocked he'd let the other cage know it, Naruto said. Kirabai snickered while Yugito sneered. He didn't much care how they felt about it. Naruto made a wood clone to deal with them. Wait, oh, Mr. 9-0. Didn't come for a test of might, let's avoid a pointless fight, fool ya fool. You really do rap when you talk? Honestly thought Jiraiya was being a little racist on that one. And sure, you 2 stand down and we don't have to fight. Do you really think we'll let you run down A-sama so you can try to kill him? Yugito yelled at the Uzumaki. She promptly found herself unable to breathe, move, or even think as Naruto applied a great deal of pressure on her. I think that anything you do is a meaningless gesture and I don't have time to teach babies how to breathe in my presence. You're outclassed, girl. Don't make a jerk of yourself. A deal I'm proposing based on the Brotherhood of the Chosen. A is a hothead, but I can't let him wind up dead. Take us in his place and that'll change his pace. That's a stopgap measure. He'll simply bide his time until he can attack us to free the both of you, or he'll kidnap someone of high value to Konoha to force a trade. He won't be reasoned with, so he doesn't get reasoned with. He gets me, and that has one outcome. If A betrays, I off myself without delay. Word is bond. Naruto looked at his fellow container while thinking. Kurama would have alerted him if he were lying, so he wasn't. True, he could run down A, the wood clone could stall these 2. However, this might be the only way to avoid war. It was a low percentage play, but maybe it was the kind of foolish bet this world needed. He needed to know why Kirabai was going this far. Why put yourself in a jackpot for A? He caused this and he should suffer the consequence. Family, 9-0. Shit, Naruto thought. If you'd pulled that shit an hour ago, we'd be brawling right now, Naruto said before his clone and he blurred in front of Yugito and B respectively. Each placed an assorted sealing array on them, one was a Hiraishin Shiki and the other a bomb. He explained the latter to them and made sure they understood what would happen if they stepped out of line. Kirabai understood his compliance was the only thing keeping his brother alive, as Gyuki relayed something about 9-0 felt very familiar and very dangerous to him. Let's go back to Suna, I hope Oba-chan doesn't kick my ass, Naruto said, and the trio of containers made their way back to the nearest shinobi village. Chapter 21, Deeper. A sat in a darkened office with only his rage and a half-empty bottle of whiskey for company. He was contemplating what could only be considered an insurrection he'd experienced. She using medical ninjutsu to render him unconscious, and then Daru and he sneaking their Raikage out of a village. As if he were some disobedient child and not their supreme commander. If that weren't bad enough, they said both B and Yugito planned to surrender to stop any attempts on his life. His enemies had his brother. His enemies thought him a coward. And his most trusted men did this to him. It was a minor miracle he hadn't killed the both of them. He still might, the desire was there. He didn't care about their justifications, it was not their job to question or challenge him. He ordered, they obeyed. And to think, he considered Daru as his future replacement. How could he now? How could he continue to have either of them around him when he couldn't trust them? A took a hard swig from the glass bottle. The burn of the alcohol a mere afterthought. He'd have to stay his hand for now. His first attempt failed, spectacularly, and B gave Konoha significant leverage. But it wouldn't matter, he would see Konoha fall regardless of what his idiot brother promised. He'd have to be smart. Wait until the perfect time. He'd also need an ally that excelled in deviousness. Mabui, A shouted with a drunken slur. Yes, Reikage-sama, she answered from the door. I need you to dictate a letter and send it high priority. His assistant came into his office, pen and pad in hand. A took a moment to gather his thoughts, trying his best to decide how to get the old fence sitter to join his cause. Ah, Tsunade said as she slid down into her office chair, basking in the comfortable familiarity. It wasn't a long trip back, but it was a trying one as the female container, Yugito, kept shooting dirty looks at Naruto. To his credit, he ignored her, but the Godime wanted to launch her back to Kumo via fist or foot. The only thing more annoying than Yugito's scowling gaze was B's incessant rapping. Everything came out as a rap. Everything. And once again, she had to give credit to her surrogate nephew, as he didn't seem to mind the large man's odd form of expression. Either of those could be dealt with, except Tsunade was also worried about her friend. Orochi had been subdued during their return. Not silent or withdrawn, but decidedly flat. It was clear something was bothering her, which is why it wasn't a surprise she requested Koharu join them. So, the three women sat as two waited on Orochi to start. So, I may need your help planning a wedding, Orochi said. Guest lists, decorations, the whole deal. I never really thought about it, so I'm somewhat at a loss. You think Naruto-kun would have some opinions? I don't imagine wedding planning is high on the list of concerns for men of any age, but I really don't know. Once she finished, Orochimaru looked to see surprised faces aimed at her. What? Details, girl. We need details, Koharu exclaimed. Not much to say really. After we got reacquainted. By bangin', Tsunade interrupted but was ignored. He told me he loved me, found out I was pregnant, and then gave me a ring as he went to chase down A, recounted Orochi as she blandly went through the events. You make it sound like a mission report, Orochi-chan, Koharu remarked. What did he say when you said yes? I haven't said yes, yet. Tsunade looked a little concerned as she asked, are you having some doubts? You don't have to do it if you are. Kukaku, no, that isn't it. He was in mission mode, so it wasn't the time, and I was wondering how long I had to plan. I don't want to be huge in my wedding photos, she reasoned. The reactions of the other women in the room annoyed her. Stop grinning like idiots. Don't be like that, Orochi-chan, Tsunade said, teasingly. Yes, if we're going to undertake this planning, then be nice. It's good to remember you can act girly on occasion. Just know, I am not sewing your kimono. Tsunade can do that. With what time and what skill? You're retired and are like her mother, so that responsibility would fall to you, Tsunade argued. And as her surrogate sister, I say you do it or I'll cane you. I'll just go to a seamstress, Orochi said. Yay, no. We can't chance you being a bridezilla and ripping some poor soul in half, Tsunade responded. Give me some credit. I haven't done random acts of violence in months. I rest my case, Tsunade said, looking blankly at her best friend. I agree with Tsunade-chan. That's why she'll handle it. And while we're brainstorming, maybe you should tell your young man his proposal has been accepted? Orochi nodded and excused herself. Once Orochi was out of earshot, Koharu's smile faded into a hardened mask as she looked Tsunade in her eyes. You have a tough choice to make, Tsunade, Koharu informed her. Tsunade didn't ask what the choice was, she already knew. The Godime turned away from her longtime mentor to look upon the village. Kakashi entered his apartment, relieved to be home. The trip had been trying in a way he hadn't experienced since he'd left Anbu. Having that many high-ranked ninja in one location was just begging for an incident, and it appeared A really wanted to stir up some trouble. The copy ninja couldn't believe A really ran in fear of them, There was more to the story, but the truth would hardly matter. The story to come out of the Chunin exams would be A fleeing from Konoha's contingent and his brother begging for the Raikage's life. That would eventually lead to conflict. "Hey, Kakashi," Obito said from the couch. Kakashi responded with an eye smile to his roommate. The initial meeting between them had been awkward. Some part of him hated Obito for taking Minato-sensei away, for the damage he'd done to Sasuke and Naruto, but most of him just felt sorry for his friend. To have watched Rin die, to be broken down by Madara Uchiha of all people, it was just too much. Kakashi understood why he gave up on the world. He also understood the desire for redemption even when knowing it was likely to never come. They had to form a new dynamic. They had grown and experienced too much to fall into old habits, but Kakashi felt lighter having his old friend around. Obito had a long road ahead of him, but Kakashi wouldn't abandon him. "How was Suna?" Obito asked, scooting over so Kakashi could join him on the couch. Kakashi then explained the events, including the foiled ambush and the arrival of Kirabai and Yugito. Obito laughed. The bastard laughed. "There's no way you got paid enough for that." No, I did not," Kakashi answered, rubbing his one visible eye. "Things are going to get bad and I am not prepared to send my kids off to war, especially since I may not be there to watch over them," Kakashi confessed. Obito only nodded. With having one student as a Jonin and the others as experienced Chunin, chances are Kakashi would be pulled away to more pressing or specialized missions. "Don't be so preoccupied with discussion with the future you don't allow the present to have its say," Obito cautioned. Ma, Obito. Sounding all wise and stuff, that's going to take some getting used to." "Ha ha ha," Obito laughed sarcastically. "It is generally the failures and the screw-ups who are the most wise, if they live long enough to mature. We know everything not to do." Kakashi forewent correcting his former teammate, knowing he often thought of himself as a failure even when others would vehemently disagree. "Then, can I borrow some of that hard-earned wisdom?" "I can try, but I make no promises," Obito responded. "What's up?" "What's up is I can't for the life of me make sense of why the Raikage seems to have a special and focused dislike of Naruto. If things go for the worst, I have no doubt he'll have assassination squads for much of the next generation, but there is something about Naruto that just really gets at the man and I can't imagine why." "Because he saw Sensei as a rival?" Obito questioned knowingly and Kakashi nodded. "Like with many a broken boy, you must look to the father, Kakashi. From the information Zetsu provided me, A plateaued after his father's death, meaning he likely never surpassed the man in strength. And given his belief that you rule and govern through strength, he sees himself as what, a pretender?" Kakashi asked, interrupting the Uchiha. "Maybe, or somehow not altogether worthy." "And how does that relate to Naruto?" "As strong as A was, he was not considered the strongest Kage of his era. He was not able to define the era either." "Who was?" "Sandaime-sama," Kakashi answered, his genius-level intellect directing a full picture. "A gets a dossier from Raza warning him of a burgeoning ninjutsu prodigy, having mastered all 5 elements and creating original jutsu left and right, excellent weapon user with a great lineage. He thinks Naruto could have been his Hiruzen?" "Yup, and the Sandaime didn't have the strongest of the Baijuu sealed in him. If Naruto were just powerful or extremely fast like Sensei, A probably wouldn't regard him as he does. But you know how hard it is to create one original jutsu, no telling how many Naruto actually has. A sees the next god of shinobi before he reaches maturity and sees a way to finally eclipse his father. This could only be more textbook if the guy secretly wanted to fuck his mother," Obito explained. When he was met with silence, he saw Kakashi looking at him blankly. "What? You were sounding really smart right until the end there, dummy." "Shut it, Kaka-team. You know I'm right. I don't read any books about men wanting to screw their mommies, and I've read some wild porn in my day. I didn't know you got it like that, Obito." Kakashi teased. Obito squawked in protest. "I'm talking psychology." Ma, I don't kink shame, Obito." "Stupid, one-eyed bastard. What do you want for lunch?" Obito asked, heading to the kitchen. "Oh, I'm not picky. Just don't put an eye out or people might wonder about your preferences." Obito said nothing, but Kakashi saw his neck muscles tense in annoyance. He didn't laugh, choosing to savor his silent victory instead. Yugito looked around the Hidden Leaf village and found nothing appealing about it in the slightest. The trees were too tall, leaves too green. The people lacked discipline, too relaxed for a military installation. A surprise attack would likely lead to a great deal of chaos. Even the air bothered her. It was too plentiful? Too easy. In the mountains of Kumo the air was thinner, you fought to breathe easily, but at this level everything was simply given to you. Here we are, said the voice of Konoha's weapon. He'd led them to where they'd be staying, pointing to the single-level dwelling of wood and brick. It has all the standard amenities, functioning utilities and a fully stocked kitchen. Since you are a guest of the Uzumaki clan, it only made sense you reside on our land, he explained. Yugito detested how at ease he was around them, as if two of Kumo's best couldn't possibly pose a threat to him. He even removed the seals he'd placed on them in a show of supreme arrogance. That thought triggered the memory of her being breathlessly paralyzed in the deserts of Wind Country. She tightened her fist as she willed the memory away. As guests you'll have access to all the public areas within Konoha, and if you want to train we have private grounds or I can arrange something if given enough notice. Of course, you are to stay away from any restricted areas and avoid general mischief. As an added gesture of goodwill, Tsunade-sama will be assigning a team of Onbu helpers for you. Helpers? Yugito asked in disbelief. Yay, if you need something and I'm unavailable they will help. We're a friendly bunch in Konoha, will of fire and all that, Naruto answered with a smile. Yugito found it offensive, like everything else connected to this village. They were hostages, pretending otherwise wouldn't fool Kirabai or her. 9-0 wants to befriend the Killa. Include Miss 2 and it's a big a thrilla, fool, ya fool, B said, slapping his bicep for emphasis. See, Kirabai gets it. Well, you two settle in, Naruto spoke and then shunshined away. The two guardians of Kumo entered their temporary dwelling, Yugito thoroughly checking the place out while Kirabai simply hopped on the couch and laid down. However, before he could fully relax he was engaged by Gyuki. What's up, Mr. 8? Feeling great? No, not at all. What do you know of that boy, Kirabai? Not much, but he respects the funky flow. What else I need to know? I spoke to the Kyuubi as we traveled back, Nibi and I both. The boy's chakra reminds me of someone that predates the shinobi era and was incredibly powerful. I also believe he has my brother's full cooperation. He's dangerous, Kirabai. Maybe so, but if we don't start none won't be none. And what's the likelihood your brother will change his course? Big bro will see the light, to protect Kumo he'll do what's right. War with the leaves ain't the vibe, so why buy via jutsu or weapon grippin'? New tricks up new sleeves, new beliefs is what we need. Good luck convincing I of that, because if it comes to a fight I'm not sure we can defeat Kyuubi's container. As B continued to speak to Gyuki, Naruto was conversing with his own Baijuo. So, how did speaking with Nibi and Hachibi go? Naruto asked as he strode along his lands. I believe my message was conveyed, but both have grown arrogant over the years with their incessant backtalk. That isn't very nice, Kurama. They are your siblings, not your subordinates, and it wouldn't hurt to be a little softer, T-Bio, Naruto lightly admonished. Kurama huffed before responding. Maybe, but they needed to understand the futility in attacking us, and if I have to be unpleasant now to avoid greater unpleasantness later, I believe that is a worthy sacrifice. Granted, Naruto said as he approached the Uzumaki manor, but I just don't want you to push them away if you don't have to. If Kirabai and Yugito try anything, then that's just what it is. Did you three discuss anything else of note? Naruto asked and heard a pause. Kurama? There is something I need to tell you, something that insufferable Squid noticed, though I had hoped he wouldn't. Okay, what's up? Whatever it is, we'll handle it. You know of my father Hagoromo, you know he created us. What you do not know is that he had 2 real sons, Kurama said, and was swiftly cut off. Kurama, you and the other 8 Baijuo are his real children. That's not decided by biology but the bonds you forged, Naruto relayed, and while Kurama would never admit it, he was incredibly pleased with those words. Fine, biological sons, Indra and Asura. Indra was considered a genius, creating the hand signs you still use for your modern-day ninjutsu. So gifted, he started to rely solely on his own problem, not trusting or seeking the help of others. The younger brother, Asura, was a screw-up early in life, seemingly untalented in all Hagoromo tried to teach him. However, Asura was a natural in making friends and truly never met a stranger in his life. When it came time to choose a successor to Ninshu, Hagoromo gave his 2 sons a final test. Asura passed, Indra didn't. Indra became angry and resentful, instigating a feud between brothers that would go on for generations, only stopping when the 2 prime abortion candidates of Madara and Hashirama created this village. Indra was the progenitor of the Uchiha, Asura of the Senju and Uzumaki. As Indra and Asura both died before resolving their feud, It is possible each would leave an imprint on one of their descendants, Kurama explained. Like reincarnation? Naruto asked. Transmigration, as the influence of either is more like an echo than each brother fully inhabiting another body, and the effect is most evident when each transmigrant interacts with the other. Do you recall when you learned to accept your darker self? The door you couldn't open? Yes, Naruto answered. The special process the Panthers subjected him to was extremely memorable and just what he needed after the Land of Iron and his blow-up with Jiraiya. My father said the reason I couldn't open the door was because the time hadn't come and it never may. I believe that door to contain Asura's echo, and your father would be correct that it would require more to untap it than a simple ritual or training, Kurama said. Okay, so how can Hachibi tell this? And why didn't you tell me? Naruto asked out of curiosity, not anger. All of the training you have undertaken, pushing your chakra in ways none before you have had the effect of increasing its potency and signature closer to Asura's own. Not only is it incredibly potent but in near perfect balance, that is more than a rarity in this age, Naruto, it doesn't happen. But doesn't all that disprove your own thesis? You said Asura was a screw-up, but I've been ahead of the curve since I started seriously training myself. Yes, I struggled, but I was attempting things that should have been beyond me at that age, Naruto argued. Ah, the wrinkle. You did, initially, struggle at the academy. The lectures were too long and slow, explanations simply not worded in the way you absorbed knowledge. If you had relied solely or primarily on the academy, I believe you'd only be unlocking much of your potential now, and even then, it may never reach the levels you have obtained. Hagoromo trained Asura, if not always personally, he instructed his attendants how he wished them to proceed. My father was a great man, but it was not a perfect one. Just like your academy instructors didn't understand what you needed, Hagoromo may not have understood how to truly train Asura. So, if I am this transmigrant, then everything I can do is because of that? All my work and boasts that anyone could have broken these barriers was a lie? Naruto asked, sounding genuinely disappointed. No, you fool! Kurama yelled. Your mate proves that sub-elements can be learned, or have you forgotten that? Naruto chuckled, yay, I actually had, T-by-O. Idiot. You had your advantages, of course. You were born with higher than average chakra reserves, my presence enhanced that so you could train longer. But having me meant your chakra was tilted toward yang, so all the bookwork you did was a real struggle until you started balancing your chakra. You earned your breakthroughs, Naruto. Minato, Asura, nor I can claim credit for that. Thanks, Kurama, Naruto said, and Kurama huffed in response. Naruto was learning he did that when he was moved or pleased and didn't want to admit it. So, if I am this transmigrant, that means what for Nibi and Hachibi? Indra and Asura made Madara and Hashirama look like children in comparison. For you to give Hachibi even a hint of a familiarity suggests you'd be powerful enough to defeat him and Nibi. That we were able to freely communicate means you have my full cooperation. Hachibi knows his bothersome container couldn't defeat us, and that worries him. Okay, that all makes sense, but you still haven't explained why you didn't tell me you suspected this, Naruto reminded the Baijuo. It didn't seem relevant. If you were Asura's transmigrant, you demonstrated you couldn't access whatever lay within you, and I have no idea how to either. Also, you had no relationship with any of the existing Uchiha, so the rivalry was either settled with Madara and Hashirama, as who else could it have been, so there was nothing to look out for, or something veered you off the course and it is still moot. So, you're saying there's a reality where I'm super obsessed with Sasuke or some other Uchiha instead of being mind-blowingly awesome? That would have been a waste. If that's how you choose to interpret that, I won't argue, but I will never agree with it either, Kurama retorted. You know you love me, Kurama, Naruto teased, but continued before the fox could get indignant. I do understand why you never told me, while interesting it isn't the most actionable of intel. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the Crimson Maelstrom, and I chart my own path. Sure you do. Tomato head, Kurama teased back, knowing it'd make his idiot container irate. Why you? Take that back or I'll come into the seal and beat your whole ass, Dadabayo. I'd like to see you try, Pipsqueak. I'll use you as a chew toy, Kurama barked. Kukaku, having a private conversation, Naruto-kun? Orochi said from behind. Naruto turned toward with a beaming smile. He'd been so wrapped up with talking to Kurama he'd stopped at the door and stopped fully paying attention to his surroundings. Something like that, he answered before thinking, we'll finish this little exchange later, Kurama. I look forward to it, whelp, Kurama replied before going silent. The discussion with his lifelong companion ended. Naruto scooped Orochi in his arms and gave her a kiss. Hey, he greeted as he let go of her and opened the door. I wasn't expecting to see you so soon. Well, we need to talk, do we not? Orochi asked rhetorically. Naruto nodded and led her to the front room. The two snuggled up on the couch, a habit of theirs. Naruto sat in silence as he watched Orochi had a pen and pad, having seemingly materialized from nowhere. Okay, a few things. 1, I'll be showing soon enough, and if anyone tries to touch my belly I'll kill them, she explained. Could I negotiate you down to a maiming? Maybe a severe beating? I'll kill them, Naruto-kun, so you'll have to see to their protection if you care to. Secondly, all of my lab equipment is at my manor, but I'd presumably be spending a majority of my downtime here. I can run some tunnels to your labs or dedicate some clones to building you some labs here, Naruto said. An addendum, our housing situation. We have to. I doubt many people want to buy mine and I'm not keen on selling it. Aha. Well, and this is wholly dependent on you, but there can traditionally only be one heir. Should we have more than one child, the second born might like to have their own space to inherit. Like hey, not the heir but here's a big ass house. Kukaku, trying to leave me barefoot and in the kitchen, Naruto-kun? I never knew that was your type. I think you'd agree I do some of my better work in the kitchen, Orochi-chan, Naruto responded. Indeed, but regardless, I won't become an Uzumaki baby mill. Speaking of, how many kids do you want? Orochi asked and felt Naruto shrugged. Honestly, I don't have a number in mind as I didn't think we could have one. So, I don't know. That surprised the snake Sanin. But you've wanted a family, why didn't you think I'd figure out a solution? Because not having children wasn't a problem, and knowing your age I'd accepted being with you presented some realities. It just wasn't some grand sacrifice. I could take on students, adopt or whatever else. And while I am so excited we are having a child together, it was never a deal breaker. I want you, Orochi-chan. We could have figured everything else out when the time came. Naruto was awarded a quick kiss on the cheek for his answer, it happening so fast and going unacknowledged that he could have been forgiven for doubting it happened. I would like some yuzu trees. I like the fruit and the smell they give off. My feet get cold at night, I will be putting them on or under you for additional warmth and expect no complaints. Anko and I have tea twice a week, and once you let her in your home she'll be impossible to get rid of. Treat her kindly. Those are doable. Anything else? Naruto asked. I'm sure there will be, but we'll have a lifetime to figure them out, Orochi said as she retrieved the ring box from inside of kimono, opened it, and slipped the ring on. I look forward to it, Naruto said, gently pulling his wife-to-be closer. The two shared a quiet moment, each looking forward to their future together. The moment ended when Orochi felt a rumble in Naruto's chest and heard a chuckle. She turned to her fiancé and saw him smiling brightly. Since you said yes, I guess it is time to pay your bride price, Naruto observed. Not even the daimyo still do that, Naruto-kun, besides, I don't think you have enough to afford me. Well, let's call it an engagement present then, he said as he retrieved a scroll from his kunai holster. Naruto unfurled the scroll and unsealed a single item. He placed it in Orochi's hand and laughed at her confusion. A water balloon? She asked in disbelief. This is only step 1, Orochi-chan. This is a gift, but it's one you have to earn. However, once you do you'll have this, Naruto said as he formed a Rasengan in his hand. As soon as Naruto ended the jutsu he was mounted, Orochi's tongue invading his mouth and her hands in his sanguine locks. She felt herself being pulled closer as Naruto wrapped his arms around her slender frame. You, get a room, said a deep voice from an entryway. The newly engaged couple broke apart, though Orochi never left Naruto's lap as she glared at her fellow Sanin. Technically, Jiraiya, every damn room in this house is my room, Naruto said. Yay, whatever. Look, I didn't scar my psyche with the sight of you with her, but your Nara teammate is coming to the door. A jittery and fast knock was heard just as Jiraiya announced Shikamaru's arrival. Okay, that's weird. I'm probably going to have to go, Naruto said while gazing up at his wife-to-be. Can we continue this later? She nodded as she slid off his lap and another vigorous knock was heard. Jiraiya, can you walk her through the first step of learning the Rasengan, please? Naruto requested, and to Orochi's surprise Jiraiya didn't refuse. You move faster than even your father, and he wanted to marry Kushina after their first date, Jiraiya replied wistfully. Naruto shot him a smile before saying, counterclockwise, Jiraiya, and then departed. Well, are we doing this now? Jiraiya asked with zero enthusiasm. What did Naruto-kun mean by counterclockwise? It's the orientation of your chakra. When you start forming the Rasengan, it should go counterclockwise, Jiraiya explained. How could he know that? Easiest way to check is to see the direction the hair grows at the crown of your head. Naruto see the top of your head a lot, Orochi? Jiraiya asked suggestively. Infinitely more than you've ever seen Tsunade's, Orochi shot back. Knowing he'd lost this one. Troublesome, Shikamaru said when his third attempt at knocking was interrupted by Naruto storming out of the door. What's up? Naruto asked. Kurenai-sensei is in the hospital, it's time, Shikamaru explained. He then felt Naruto grab onto his shoulder and instantly found himself in front of the hospital. That was weird, the Nara said. Naruto rolled his eyes at his friend as the two raced to the maternity ward. Upon arrival, Naruto noticed he was the last one there and was thankful he'd managed to make it back today. Team Asuma, Shino, Hiruzen and Anko had taken seats in the waiting room and Naruto grabbed an empty one by the Aburame. Naruto, Shino greeted. Shino, he greeted back. After that, Naruto couldn't really recall too much about any other conversations as they all waited for news. He wondered how Asuma was managing and if he'd be a good, supportive partner for Orochi-chan. As he sat in the waiting room, much of pending changes to his life were starting to feel more real. He was going to be a husband and a father soon. He wasn't scared, which surprised him. Not that he felt ready, but he had so many people to lean on for support that he was confident he could manage. A little over an hour later, and Asuma returned to the waiting room to announce the arrival of Mirai Sarutobi. It was another 20 minutes before the young men of Team Kurenai were allowed to see their sensei and her newborn. As they were ushered into the room, setting eyes on a clearly tired and elated Kurenai holding onto her little girl, it was Shino that spoke what they all noticed. She bears a striking resemblance to you, sensei. I suppose so, but I see a lot of Asuma in her, too, Kurenai replied softly. I'm glad all three of you could be here for this new addition to our family. When I see the three of you, there are so many characteristics of yourselves I hope you can impart on Mirai-chan. Asuma and I debated back and forth, but I couldn't pick between you three, so I hope you'd be fine splitting duties as Mirai's godfathers. Of course, Sensei, Naruto answered with a beaming smile. It would only be right, Shino said. It wouldn't be troublesome, Shikamaru agreed. Excellent. I know with the three of you helping to watch over her, she'll be a very happy and well-protected little girl. Yay, we'll have her whipping S-rank genjutsu before she leaves the academy. Uzumaki Naruto, you will not teach Mirai-chan any S-rank techniques before she becomes a chunin, do you understand me? What if it's a light S-rank? Like barely S-rank? Do you understand me? Yes, sensei, he replied as his two teammates laughed at him. Don't you two laugh, I expect restraint from each of you as well. No advanced tracking and assassination techniques, Shino. But they will be incredibly useful, why? Don't care, wait until she's out of the academy. And Shikamaru? What could I possibly do? Oh, I see how you manipulated Choji and Ino to get them into shape. No neuro-linguistic programming until I say otherwise. What a drag, Shikamaru said, but relented under the stern glare of his sensei. Fine, I won't, but you have to admit of the three of us, Naruto was the one to most likely teach her something inappropriate. Affirmative, Shino agreed. Well, of course, Kurenai added, causing a depression cloud to form over Naruto's head. I'm not that bad, he whined, which caused another round of laughter. Naruto soon joined in, soaking up this perfect moment, hoping it'd last. Chapter 22, Extreme Measures. Zetsu awaited for his potential new tool. If it were hot or cold, the being couldn't tell, didn't care. He was the divine will of Kaguya, her true child, and his only goal was to facilitate her return. He thought turning the two sons of Hagoromo against each other would be something she'd approve of. He thought tempting Indra to give into his darkness would be how the boy developed his own Rinnegan. He'd been wrong. And in his error, in his short-sightedness, he delayed the return of his mother. Madara showed him, the Rinnegan needed both halves of the sage's lineage and likely the strongest or purest expressions available. The Senju were all but dead, same for the Uchiha. Nagato was a powerful Uzumaki, the only reason he managed to wield those eyes, but said eyes were sealed away. Zetsu was in real danger of failing his mother. He suspected he needed not only Sasuke but the container of the Kyuubi and someone with the medical knowledge to transplant the DNA of the one into the other. He'd ordered Shino to kill the two boys, never expecting the man to succeed. His hope had been to weaken them so he could abduct them, but Shino had proven wholly useless. So, now he planned to tempt one more frail being to do his bidding. It was so easy. These humans could play at being high-minded, but in the end, it was their desires that ruled them. If he knew what they wanted, getting them to act as he wished was child's play. An entire culture built on deception and cunning, and yet they could be swayed by such meager ends. Zetsu didn't react when he heard the grass rustle. He'd sensed the approaching shinobi. The moonlight formed a glint on his eyeglasses as he removed the hood from his cloak. "Zetsu, I presume?" the smug boy asked. "Kabuto Yakashi," Zetsu acknowledged. Kaguya's will and Orochimaru's former top spy stared at each other for several moments, neither wanting to cede the smallest advantage to the other. Kabuto was the one to break the silence. "You were very discreet in your request I meet you, but I fail to see why you'd bother. I was ordered to do one thing and your head gets me back to where I want to be." "Does it?" Zetsu asked. "Even if you and your group could defeat me, I think you'd find some surprising changes once you return to Konoha. And as long as Uzumaki Naruto exists, you'll never have your Orochimaru back, she'll always be his." Zetsu felt the anger well up in the boy, being reminded of the person he surely hated most in the world. "And what could you possibly do about that? Or should I be asking what I'd need to do to receive your aid?" "What I want is very simple. I need a living tissue sample from Uzumaki Naruto implanted into Uchiha Sasuke and time to oversee the effects of said procedure. To accomplish that and remove the Uzumaki permanently, I would give you the means. The boy may be powerful for this age, but he is nothing compared to the legends of the past. Do you know the Edo Tensei, Kabuto?" "Yes. Orochimaru allowed me to learn a version of it." Kabuto did not take comfort in Zetsu's smile as the man formed the ram sign and tree roots emerged from the ground, carrying with them a casket. Zetsu calmly walked over to the casket and opened it. Kabuto looked unimpressed at the fossil. "And who might this be?" "The real Uchiha Madara," Zetsu informed the spy. Kabuto looked at Zetsu in disbelief. "But it is," Zetsu reassured the medic. "Agree to work with me and I will give you Madara himself, and with him, under your control, you will not fail to kill the Uzumaki. What do you say?" Zetsu asked, but assumed the answer was obvious. "All this for me just so you can get Uchiha Sasuke-kun? Seems pretty suspicious, Zetsu-san. There's also the problem of my not having a reason to return to Konoha nor having any information on Sasuke's mission assignments." "I'm sorry, Kabuto, I assumed you were clever. If entering into your own village and abducting one jounin is too difficult for you, then I've come to the wrong person," Zetsu responded, adding some menace to his voice. Now, threats are unneeded. "I'd be happy to help and rid myself of that red-haired blight," Kabuto said, adjusting his glasses. Zetsu looked upon the boy smugly, as he'd never get to enjoy whatever small victory he claimed over the Uzumaki. As soon as the procedure was complete, he'd eliminate Kabuto. "Good. Since your squad is so diligently tracking me, I will lead you back to Konoha. I expect you to take care of the rest." Zetsu and Madara's corpse sank into the ground without further word. Kabuto wasn't surprised the former Akatsuki didn't hand over Madara just yet. The medic didn't mind, he was patient. He'd get his hands on the legendary Uchiha and then use the man to remove Zetsu and Naruto. He knew Orochimaru would be furious, at first, but he'd make her see reason, make her see how far she'd strayed from her true self, and then things would return to normal. It was just a matter of time. "Understand," Ace stated, "I don't want to send you. I don't trust you, not really. Konoha has my brother because of you, but Aniki can sense no dissension within our ranks, and with Dodai gone, you are all I have." "I understand," Daru replied, posture rigid and eyes focused. Any allowance of informality was gone, on the strictest of etiquette was permitted. It was early yet, not even errant rays of sunlight could be seen. Daru was alert, and more importantly, he welcomed the opportunity to leave. She and he had explained themselves as well as they could. Ai's ambush failed and they needed to fall back. Even with Kirabai and Yugito there, those two couldn't be expected to fight 2/3 of the Sannin, Hatake Kakashi, Uzumaki Naruto and, potentially, Gaara of the desert in the desert. Daru even made the point that if Kirabai thought the AB tandem could have won, he wouldn't have sacrificed himself. A would hear nothing of it. The Raikage swore Kirabai was just attempting to avoid a fight, as was his way. That while formidable, the Konoha contingent would not have been enough, nor would the boy cage that ruled over Suna. He swelled with pride and reeked of liquor when he stated that whatever advantage they had, none could overcome his lightning armor. Daru remarked that A-sama never believed that lone technique made him invincible. A lost it and punched through a wall, narrowly missing Daru's head. The two Kumo elites looked at each other, A in rage and Daru nearing anger himself. He was loyal, but he was no coward and would not accept any and all treatment from A. He lived for Kumo, he'd die for Kumo, but before anything, he was a man. Not some boy, not a sycophant, but man, and he wouldn't carry it any other way. Mabui intervened before the situation could become unsalvageable, and Daru hadn't spoken to the Raikage again until this briefing. You are expected to arrive within 5 days and are to stay for no longer than a week. I expect you to be able to tell whether Aniki is serious or not. Promise him nothing and report everything to me upon your return. Do not fail me. Dismissed, A bellowed. Daru departed silently. Clanging and furious movement could be heard as a trio of blurs engaged in a violent exchange of weapons. After the last attack, two broke away from one, looking on at their mutual opponent. Shikamaru held his tanto in a reverse grip, knee slightly bent, prepared to move at the smallest provocation. Shino, dual sei at the ready, was a mere foot apart, primed for the same. Naruto looked at his two teammates with a smile as he spun his pair of metal nunchaku. They were starting to breathe a little heavy, but it had been a good showing and he wouldn't let up. He appeared in front of Shino with an impressive display of pure speed and began attacking. Clang, clang, swoosh clang. The sounds went as the Aburame air blocked, deflected and dodged. Shikamaru came into Naruto's blind side, ruthlessly slashing at his neck, but his progress was ended by Naruto's well-timed back kick. Planting the kicking foot, Naruto rotated as to avoid Shino's dual thrust and retaliated with more swings, none hitting the mark. Having both assailants in his view, Naruto brought an end of each nunchaku together and with a concentration of his chakra transformed them into a short spear. Shino? Shikamaru spoke. Yes, Shikamaru? Does it offend you any that we're being pushed this hard by a shadow clone and Naruto is just using said clone to get some training with his Kotan? Yes does. Why? Because the shadow clone, by its very nature, is a fraction of its creator's overall ability and power. Also, why should he get to spend our team training time with his girlfriend? Fiancé. While we're over here with this troublesome clone? Long distance getting to you, Shikamaru? Shino asked, and Shikamaru could hear the teasing in his voice even if it didn't change in the slightest. Cold showers are a drag, Shikamaru responded as he hadn't seen Tamari in weeks. I wouldn't know, Shino bragged. I hate you both. Oi, less talking more fighting, the real Naruto said as he sat under a shady tree, Orochimaru between his legs as she attempted to pop the water balloon. Shika and Shino both responded with a single finger hand gesture, and Naruto delighted in his clone continuing his assault. He returned his attention to his betrothed as she focused intensely on the water balloon in her right hand. Orochi-chan, I'm getting concerned you've slipped past concentration and ran straight into existential contemplation on the nature of that water balloon, he said in jest. She released a small laugh in return. Maybe so. This jutsu is vexing. It should be simple, and for some reason even knowing what I should do, it just isn't coming to me. You're likely outsmarting yourself, Naruto suggested as he thought back to her progress or lack thereof. Since you have some notion of what should be done, you're trying to do it all at once. Basically, your genius brain is making this harder for you. Be more like Jiraiya, Naruto observed and then advised. Oh my, Naruto-kun, right in front of your teammates? Kinky boy, she purred and felt something move against her back. That is not what I meant, T-by-o, Naruto defended. He briefly looked back to his friends and clone, seeing his Bunshine had gone from the short spear to a Kusarigama as it fought only Shino, Shika having tapped out. Isn't it? She asked. Is my wearing this ring not enough? Must you claim me in front of an audience, you brute, she said as she gently grinded against him. I give, you win, Naruto conceded, not wanting her to escalate things. Kukaku, of course I do, the future Uzumaki said as she watched the exchange between Team Kurenai. It made her curious. When did you learn those weapon forms, Naruto-kun? Jiraiya is serviceable with them, but that's about it. The scroll Hashirama-sama left me had a lot of forms and styles for various weapons. Once I learned the steel release Jiraiya and I agreed it made sense to increase my proficiency in more than just sword types. The two continued to chat away until Tuya approached them at a clipped pace, gaining the notice of Shika and Shino as well. Orochimaru-sama, you're needed at the Hokage Tower, Tuya announced but said no more. Orochimaru kissed Naruto's cheek and departed, Tuya close behind. When the pair were far enough away, Orochimaru questioned her subordinate. What else did you have to tell me, Tuya-chan? Kimimaro and company have returned, All but Kabuto are at your manor. Kabuto was taken to the Hokage by a squad of Onbu, the Uzumaki Genjutsu mistress relayed. You join the boys, I'll go have a word with Kabuto-kun, Orochi said, voice monotone. Hi, Tuya obeyed and shunshined to her destination. Neither she nor Orochi noticed the single Kikaiku depart from Tuya's hair. Shino's trusted ally soon returned to his host's body, causing Shino to call a stop to the spar. Normally the return of an ally would be welcomed but offer little in the way of intelligence. But Team Kurenai didn't deal in normal. Maybe may have thought Kurenai was a poor match for her students, but they'd be completely wrong. Outside of each boy learning to be adept trackers, intelligence gatherers and some of the best genjutsu users in the village, they all took to learning pure yin release and infusing it into their arsenal. For Shikamaru, it made his shadow-based jutsu stronger than any of his clan save, possibly, his father, and he'd soon surpass the Jounin commander. He also had more variations than anyone, his shadow seemingly coming to life to haunt his enemies. Naruto, already having overachieved at being able to wield genjutsu, wanted to manage to infuse it into his elemental ninjutsu. He'd succeeded at creating a few techniques that could attack while also ensnaring the enemy. He also uses it to mask his summoning jutsu, his enemies never truly knowing how many panthers he calls forth at any one time. Like the rest of his team, Shino trained and excelled in genjutsu. Like Shikamaru, he managed to infuse the yin release into his family's signature abilities, but not to attack but as a method of intelligence gathering. Limited in what they could record, he had a section of specialized Kikaiku that could replay overheard conversations. His facility with them only grew during his time as a hunter nin, missing ninja failing to ambush or evade the Aburame air. And now one of those special, little bugs was revealing something of great importance. Naruto had grown and matured during his time away. He'd really taken much of Jiraiya's philosophies to heart, even if he didn't wholly agree. He believed in peace, but a peace that protected the weak from the strong. He believed that revenge was an oft futile act that didn't balance the scales nor sated the emotional needs of the person seeking it. He was not as angry, not as quick to violence now as he was then, partially because his level of skill and power demanded control and discernment. Kabuto is back, Shino informed Shika and Naruto. With all his growth, he was not a pacifist nor a saint. Anyone that proved to be a threat could be removed, and Kabuto had tried to kill him and his team. By itself, that earned Kabuto a slot on Naruto's kill list. But now that he knows Orochi is pregnant, the medic became a problem in need of a solution. He dies today, Naruto said. He's in the Hokage's custody, Shino pointed out. Today, Naruto reiterated. He saw the looks his friends shot him. Looks that begged for an explanation. Naruto sighed before answering. Orochi's pregnant, he said. He smirked a little as both concealed their surprise well, likely focusing on the issue at hand. Naruto ran his fingers through his hair. Chakra is a funny thing. Your initial capacities are like any other genetic predisposition, given to you by your parents. But chakra can change, expand, strengthen over time, so in that way he can act as something akin to an environmental factor. Your chakra can affect how your genes express themselves, it is an epigenetic factor, Naruto explained, and saw that each was still with him. He'd honestly hadn't known this until Tsunade started training him on medical ninjutsu, as she refused to do things halfway. My child will be the child of a Sanin and a lifelong Jinchuriki Uzumaki who has spent a solid decade increasing the potency and amount of his chakra. Massive reserves, Shikamaru said. Yes, Kyubi says I'm nearing tailed best level reserves on my own now that I no longer have to hold his chakra back. Well, when baby forms it takes more than just nutrients from mom. Even as a Sanin, it is likely Orochimaru's own chakra system will be strained and impacted by the unique circumstances of his or her conception, Shino concluded. Troublesome. At some point, she's going to be weakened. Chakra control shot, maybe not consistently, but that almost makes it worse. Reserves also diminished to go the most troublesome fetus in history. Kabuto would probably make another attempt on your life first, but if he believes he can't get to you he'll target the baby, Shikamaru concluded. Kabuto dies today, Naruto reiterated. Agreed/affirmative, his teammates said without hesitation. Shikamaru then added, snatching him from the Hokage and therefore Onbu won't be easy. We have to at least try to get away with it. We'd also have to talk to Kurenai-sensei, why? Even if purely ceremonial, she is still our squad leader and deserves to know, be allowed to weigh in. I agree, besides I may have a plan, but I'd need Kurenai-sensei's help. What plan? Shikamaru asked. Singing in the rain, Naruto said. Ambitious, was the Nara's reply. Village-wide? Shino asked. And followed up, can you handle that? For my future wife and child? Yes. Besides, you two would have the hard part. We'd only have one go at this, and if we fail we are so screwed, Shikamaru expressed. Guys, if this is too much I will sincerely understand. Just tell me now and I'll handle it. Honest. No, we will undertake this as a team, but we should be aware of the consequences. Some will be present even should we succeeded, Shino explained. We'll need 2 messenger summons. I have everything else on me, said Shikamaru. Same, Shino added. Naruto nodded and then summoned 2 panther cubs. His teammates informed the little ones of their tasks and they took off. The 3 members of Team Kurenai then made their way to Kurenai's. Kabuto sat in the armless chair, Hokage in front of him, Toad Sage behind and a team of hidden Onbu ready to strike at a moment's notice. Objectively, his situation was precarious, but as a former spy, he'd gotten used to it, learned to manage the anxiety before it became full-blown panic. They had yet to ask him a question, which meant they were awaiting the arrival of someone else. When the door opened behind him, before he even heard her trademark laugh, he just knew who it was. Kukaku, I certainly was not expecting to see you today, Kabuto-kun, she said as she walked past her former second-in-command. Kabuto surveyed her in but a glimpse. It was short, but he'd seen all he needed to. The ostentatious ring glinting in the light, minor, yet significant, body changes that could only mean one thing. She was engaged, possibly married, and pregnant for that lowly, childish Uzumaki. He fought to remain still, forced his body not to adjust his glasses in a show of his seething rage. She was capable of so much, meant for more, and she settled for that. Worm? A lower life form, a hammer only capable of bludgeoning things. His mistress found that Uzumaki, back always straight, an arrogant smile that suggested he was in on some secret shared by the universe. A boy. A boy. She changed for a boy like some fangirl. Most powerful and feared woman in the shinobi nations, and she'd rather play house with a boy. It was almost too much, discipline and fear of death be damned. She needed to see, needed to be called into account for how far she'd fallen. What was it about the Uzumaki that made him so impressive to her? While he may have had some talent, he was just as babied and protected as every other leaf brat blessed to walk in the light. Because he was a good fighter? So were a lot of people. That he had some jutsu? So what? How many jutsu from the same elemental do you need? What did Naruto Uzumaki have that he, Kabuto, did not? What was so special about this boy, a boy, that it made the person he respected most in the world forget herself and forget him? What? Kabuto, Tsunade spoke, getting the medic's attention. Yes, Tsunade-sama? He replied, trying to calm himself as he felt that old blood stirring. He needed to get out of here and complete his deal with Zetsu. Why are you here? Is Zetsu dead? No, he said. Kukaku, and yet, you dare return? How brave of you, Orochi quipped. Zetsu had proven most elusive, this is true, but the reason I returned is he made me an offer. He wants me to abduct Uchiha Sasuke. In return, he offered to kill Naruto, believing that is something I want, Kabuto said, knowing he had to give most of the truth for any of this to work. If Zetsu were capable of killing Naruto, why wouldn't he abduct Sasuke by himself? Tsunade asked, and Kabuto cursed her internally. Dealing with lesser minds had hampered his game. I don't know, Hokage-sama. He wasn't long on details, he seemed ready to attack me should I have given him reason to doubt me. Tsunade turned her chair to stare out the window. Like her 2 teammates, she was digesting what Kabuto had reported. She mulled the swift change in weather as storm clouds appear to gather in the once cloudless sky. The 5th Hokage suspected Kabuto was holding something back, something important. The question was, could they use him, uncover his plot and neutralize him before he had a chance to strike or go to ground? Should she just execute him now? One swift punch would do it. As the raindrops started to fall and the sounds and smells of the storm filled her office, Tsunade cursed Hiruzen for leaving her with this mess. He should have killed the boy and been done with it. Instead, he all but pardoned the traitor and used him as a pawn, and since that was one of his last official acts, Tsunade couldn't legally kill him for something her predecessor had adjudicated. Just another corner of Sensei's cluster of pronounced fuckery left on her desk like an errant shit she was expected to clean up. The goddime closed her eyes, the steady pattern of the rain helping her think. She wanted to get rid of the last of the Akatsuki, even Obito saying Zetsu was a danger with his intelligence-gathering abilities. The Uchiha had given as much information as he could on the thing, as it was not a living person. When Obito said it was Madara's will manifested, Naruto immediately called bullshit. Tsunade smiled as she recalled her surrogate nephew going into lecture mode about yin tethers and how if Zetsu were Madara's will, Madara would have to be alive or Zetsu would have ceased to exist. Obito reassured them Madara was definitely dead, so that meant Zetsu had been convincing and conniving enough to even trick that man. Sneaking up on him was almost impossible. Kabuto confirmed what Obito reported about the plant thing's sensory abilities. Obito didn't know much about his combat prowess but suspected he could hold his own against most ninja. Zetsu presented the worst kind of threat, a known unknown. It made plotting and planning to remove the thing mind-numbingly difficult. This meant Kabuto's triple agent routine might be their best bet. She'd have to get Sasuke in on the plan, maybe have Naruto give him a Hiraishin kunai so the two boys could just kill or seal the thing. Tsunade turned around, decision having been made. She then proceeded to drill down a plan to trap the last Akatsuki member. Again and again, and again. The details never changed, but no one in the room seemed to notice, except Jiraiya. The Toad Sage had been having this inkling, this instinct that something wasn't right. Or better stated, off balance. He couldn't put his finger on it, so he walked to and sat in the window. For some reason, the storm reverberated with him, but he felt equally pulled to and away from it, feeling the need to go over Tsunade's plan again. Forcing himself to focus on the rainfall, he finally pinpointed the abnormality. The rain was brimming with Senjutsu chakra, which meant it wasn't natural. Jiraiya hastily threw up a barrier meant to shield all senses within it. Kai! Jiraiya called out as he disrupted his chakra and immediately noticed Tsunade and Orochimaru were looking at and interacting with an empty chair. Kabuto was gone. He broke each one out of the Genjutsu and her Anbu guard. What the hell, Jiraiya? Tsunade yelled. She was the world's best medic, as in touch with her chakra flow as anyone, so putting her under a Genjutsu was no small feat. Kabuto is gone, don't know for how long, and the only thing preventing us from falling into the same Genjutsu is this barrier, Jiraiya explained. The storm? Orochi concluded, briefly recalling it starting but paying it no more attention. However now, thanks to the barrier, she couldn't sense any part of it. Yes. Did Naruto know Kabuto was back? This is his technique, he said. I didn't tell him, but that is clearly irrelevant and we're wasting time. He didn't take Kabuto to give him a lecture, Orochi responded. I need to go, Jiraiya said as he performed the summoning jutsu, the results surprising his teammates. Pa, I'm sorry to be short, but I need to enter Sage mode and stop Naruto. Both toads hop on his shoulders, but it didn't stop Shima from asking, what is Naruto-chan going to do, Jiraiya boy? Remove a threat to his family. Unfortunately, that threat is a village asset. Pa nodded sagely, Naruto-chan prefers decisive action. He's like Minato-chan in that way. Yay, he's a chip off the old block, which is why we can't delay. The two sages focused and balanced the natural energy for Jiraiya. Now looking very toad-like, he turned to Tsunade and said, I can control this barrier remotely, so when it drops send every Anbu you can. Jiraiya hopped out the window, his heightened senses alerting him to two Narutos, one cloaked under a Genjutsu by Kurenai and the other with his teammates on the Nara lands. He'd go there and draw the real one, who he assumed to be with Kurenai, to him. As he dashed toward his destination, he ignored that he hadn't sensed Kabuto. Earlier, before Jiraiya was making a mad dash toward the members of Team Kurenai, the young men were in their sensei's house, Shino holding Mirai and Shikamaru smirking as Naruto got several bonks on the head. After 3, Kurenai hugged her problem child. Why the reaction? Like Shino and Shikamaru, Naruto informed Kurenai Orki and he were engaged but didn't mention she was pregnant. That, however, was not the cause of her violent reaction but his reasoning of withholding the news to not overshadow Mirai's arrival. Kurenai thought it was stupid as they could all use more joy. Though she did instill a new team rule of no children until they were S-class ninja or 20 years old. When Naruto suggested he could get them to S-class in 6 months of dedicated training, both intended victims were vehement in their refusal. Seeing Naruto look so smug, she bonked him again and said that was for putting a shadow on her. She'd long suspected it, but only recently had she caught Megila. The unofficial 5th member of the team reassured Kurenai she was there to observe but not report. Kurenai then took the time to introduce the much larger panther to her daughter. Now, the team was out back as they'd explained the dilemma and plan to Kurenai. She wasn't enthusiastic but agreed to aid them. She watched Naruto create a shadow clone and then sit down with his legs crossed. She cloaked the entire team, hiding their presence just before Naruto became engulfed in golden Baijuu chakra. A tail went to Kurenai, Shino, and Shikamaru giving them the version 1 by Juu cloak. It was the only way to shield them from his jutsu while they were on the move. With the aid of Kurama, Naruto was already pulling in and balancing the natural energy with his chakra. Soon the horizontal bar pupil overlaid the vertical slits. "Okay, walk us through this jutsu one more time, Naruto," Kurenai requested. "It starts with the typhoon release. With sage infused by Juu chakra I can generate a village-wide storm. Nagato had something similar in Ame going constantly and used it as a sensory jutsu. The genjutsu I'll overlay happens in conjunction, meaning it is laced in the very clouds and permeates every sensation the storm produces: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste." "Pure hypnosis," Kurenai said, sincerely impressed. "Yes, but the downsides are several. Even for me, this is chakra intensive. I can't move while using it and it generates a good deal of mental strain because of the number of people I'm affecting. It also takes over 100 hand signs," Naruto explained. "It's good you know its limitations. Once the rain really starts coming down you two get a move on. Kyuubi's chakra protects you but you'll still be coated in rain, meaning anyone who hadn't been affected will be should they see you." Seeing his teammates nod, Naruto closes his eyes to focus. He began the long chain of hand signs, performing each one with the skill befitting a ninjutsu specialist. The Uzumaki increased his speed as he went through, hands moving faster near the end compared to the beginning. The effects could be seen instantaneously, as the clouds started to form before he was even half done. 3/4 finished and the first drops started to fall, the amount and rate of rainfall increasing as Naruto neared completion. On the last sign, Naruto thought, Sage Art, Kyoka Suigetsu and Konoha was blanketed in a sudden storm but almost none sensed anything was askew. Shino and Shika sunshined away, arriving just a short distance from the Hokage Tower. The Nara could tell no one saw them. It was impressive but he had no time to marvel. Running to the tower, they post outside the window and overhear the conversation. Patiently, they waited and when they heard the loop restart, the heir slipped into the office and grabbed Kabuto, Shino knocking him unconscious. It was surreal to see the three Sannin continue to speak to someone that wasn't conscious nor would be there soon. Draped over his shoulder, Shino and Shikamaru made their way to the Nara forests, where Naruto's shadow clone was awaiting them. Once they made it to the final destination, Naruto erected a sensory barrier and then restrained Kabuto with steel chains. Once set, he broke Kabuto free of the illusion and the other two lost their Baijuu cloak. The medic blinked, clearly confused as to where he was and how he got there, but once he laid eyes on Naruto he tried to break free, desire to kill him overriding any other concern. A startlingly strong punch to the jaw settled Kabuto down, nearly concussing him. "We don't have a lot of time so this isn't going to be a whole thing. You're about to die, make whatever peace you can. Or don't, I don't care." "Shika, you're up," Naruto said. Shikamaru approached the medic with some powder in a vial. He poured into his hands. Once Shikamaru was right in front of the bound Kabuto, he blew the substance in Kabuto's face, forcing the spy of Oto to ingest it. At first, Kabuto felt nothing but soon he noticed an elevated heart rate and the sensation that time had slowed considerably. He watched the Aburame approach him and it felt like it took hours when logically he knew that to be impossible. Said shinobi placed one finger near Kabuto's hairline. Kabuto couldn't see but felt an insect climb onto him. Then he felt pain. That type of beetle burrows. Right now, it's doing that to your skull and will continue until it eats through your brain. The torture he was experiencing made writhe against bindings but he could only haplessly flail. It was as if he was feeling each bite in its greatest detail, over and over again. So blinded by pain, Kabuto didn't realize Naruto had returned until the Uzumaki yanked him up by the hair so they were eye to eye. He watched Naruto go through a chain of hand signs before he, Kabuto, was slapped with an open palm in his chest. The newest sensation felt like a small tug, something pulling him to the ground. "The jutsu I just performed, it's a jitten technique I haven't named yet but you're going to be pulled toward the core of the planet. Now luckily for you, you merge with the earth so it isn't that different from Doden techniques that allow underground movement. The difference, however, is that you have no control over how far and how fast you sink. There is also the reality that jutsu will run out of chakra eventually and then you will be crushed instantly." As Kabuto was forcibly lowered into his final resting place he could barely form a coherent thought. Knowing he was going to die but experiencing it so slowly was peeling away the layers of his sanity. He tried to scream but felt a strong hand grip his jaw, painfully. "I've taken your life, Kabuto, do not give me your dignity as well," the Uzumaki advised. Even as slowly as the words came out, Kabuto could still see the value of them. No, he would not give this boy his dignity. While fast for them, for Kabuto finally being subterranean took a lifetime. He did not know how far he sank, could not tell how deeply the insect had burrowed into his skull, but when the jutsu finally ended he welcomed death, the pressure of the interior levels of the planet crushing him instantly. Sometime after their successful assassination, the real Naruto arrived, having ended his jutsu and dispelling the clone. Jiraiya is on his way, he explained. He was out of Kurama and Sage mode, both having done much to alleviate his headache, but the mental strain was still there, just lightened. Jiraiya landed hard, Ma and Pa on his shoulders. Naruto rolled his eyes, his godfather was being extra. "Where is Kabuto?" Jiraiya asked, but there was a clear demand in his tone. "Who's that?" Shika asked. "That medic that wished he was Orochi-chan's cuckold," Naruto explained before remembering his manners. "Hi Granny and Grandpa Sage," he called out as he waved. "Hi, Naruto-chan," Shima responded while also waving. "He sounds like a bitch boy. We don't associate with them," Shino explained, getting back to the topic at hand. "Why?" "Well, that should be self-evident." "Are you three having fun? Because pretty soon there's going to be several squads of Onbu here to take you into custody and they won't be nice about it. I'd imagine they'd be a little mannerable, as I can get rude, too." "Really, Naruto? How's the headache? You probably couldn't fight a wet paper bag," Jiraiya challenged. "PFFT, don't start talking slick because you're in Sage mode, shitty pervert," Naruto warned. "Naruto-chan, language. You are a proud toad summoner and will comport yourself thusly," Shima lambasted. "That'd carry more weight if the boy wasn't right about Jiraiya's perversions," Fukasaku observed. "He's a lost cause, but Naruto-chan can still be set straight. Minato-chan never used bad language." As the two toads bickered, much to Jiraiya's embarrassment, Shino leaned over to Naruto and said, "She is aware your father was the greatest mass murderer the shinobi villages have ever produced, yes?" "I'm sure she's heard, Shino," Naruto said, dryly. "Then why?" "It's not even worth trying to explain. I've just learned to accept it." As the most relaxed standoff in history continued, the surrounded forests were filled with a series of swooshes and gently ruffled trees. The Onbu had arrived and hurriedly surrounded Team Kurenai, weapons drawn. Naruto, looking down and holding his head, asked Shika, "How many you count?" "At least 24, wouldn't be surprised if it were double that." "Man, we should kick their asses just because," Naruto said casually, as if the presence of the village's elite forces were of no great concern. "Do not, I repeat, do not choose right now to show how gallingly troublesome you can be, Naruto." "What crawled up your butt, Shika? I didn't say I was going to fight them. I just said we should." "He's been taking a lot of cold showers, he finds them to be a drag," Shino explained. Naruto laughed in return. "Oh. I wouldn't know." "I hate both you bastards," Shika said, getting even Shino to chuckle. The scene confused the Onbu, none of them used to being treated like non-factors, especially in this large a group. The boys made a show of surrendering, especially the son of the Yondaime, as if he were doing them the favor. The boys continued to converse as they traveled in a leisurely pace under a, once again, cloudless sky. Daru had been in Iwa for several days. He'd made no progress, that Tsuchikage wanting to speak about everything but the reason for the Kumo Nin's visit. Now, he was headed to a rock garden, hopefully, to start their talks in earnest. He moved silently across the gravelly walkways, it not even requiring effort. As he trudged along, he eventually spotted Aniki sitting by a cliff. Daru joined him, making sure to make his presence known. "Daru-san, thank you for joining me," Aniki greeted. "Thank you for having me, Aniki-sama," Daru responded. "Despite what your time here may indicate, I do tend to prefer getting to the point of things. I won't apologize for giving you the runaround, as I needed to know what kind of man you are. You see, after his abrupt exit from Suna, no sitting cage will ally with A. Sure, none of us sincerely believed he fled in fear, but that is the perception, and it is one that benefits us all. Forgive my bluntness, Aniki-sama, but if the answer was going to be no, then why the games? Because A would have lost his temper, blustered and threatened. Even with an inferior hand, he projects strength as if the world will cower as a result. You remain patient and focused. That's good to know for the time ahead." "Times ahead?" Daru questioned. "A has made war an inevitability. If for no other reason than to reclaim your Jinchuriki and Kumo's loss of reputation. Add to that, Tsunade is not Hiruzen and won't extend herself as far for the sake of peace. No, war is coming and I am confident Kumo cannot win, though I doubt that's news to you. Even if your goal is to kill much of the new generation, how many will you sacrifice to do so? How many of your future will you jeopardize just to hobble Konoha's own? Daru remained silent. He didn't disagree with the protector of Iwa and felt no need to mount a hollow defense. So, Ai's war is inevitable. Unless it isn't. You have one chance to avoid this, Daru-san, but I do not know if you have it in you to do so. And what is this path that is clear to only you, Aniki-sama? Iwa will not ally with Raikage, that is the way it must be. But I would enter a partnership with Raikage Daru, Aniki explained. He saw the Kumo Jounin have no outward reaction, but that didn't surprise him. He'd taken the man's measure and did not find him wanting. Aniki turned to leave him, saying, "I'll leave you here to think about that," as he departed. Daru would stay there for several hours before returning to his room. Chapter 23, The Takeover. Tap. 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 No other sounds could be heard from the Hokage's office but Tsunade's slow, deliberate taps. The office was full, her Anbu detail hidden in the shadows, Jiraiya standing at her side, Shibi Aburame and Shikaku Nara standing behind their sons. And, most importantly, the three vexing brats, two standing at attention, the last in clear defiance. A part of her wanted to wring their little necks, strutting into her office and abducting an asset and then disappearing the body. The Hyuga and Inuzuka Anbu present at the scene hadn't reported any sign of Kabuto. It was an excellent display of tradecraft. The ninja in her was impressed. But they completely undermined a future operation, one of unknown significance. Maybe she should point them eastward and send them on a campaign of conquest, mandating none of them could see their respective girlfriends until Kumo fell. That would be adequate retaliation. She fought back a smirk, reasoning it'd probably take them a month. Then she observed the Nara, noticing he seemed twitchy for a Nara and recalled the last time Tamari had been within the village. The Godime knocked her estimate down to 2 weeks. "Heim," Jiraiya called out, likely afraid that her silence was just the build-up to an epic tantrum. "How do you three want to play this? Sure, you covered your tracks so there is no evidence, but last I checked, I'm not military police and don't require any. Or, better yet, the lack of evidence is surely evidence in itself. So, you want to play the denial game or you want to cut the shit and confess?" Tsunade asked. Before they answer, "Tsunade-sama, we feel we must point out that Kabuto Yakashi had made an attempt on their lives once before," Shikaku started. "I'm aware," Tsunade responded. "The Sandaime saw fit not to take official action against him," she finished in disgust. "Yes, he refused official action but never forbade the inflicted clans from seeking retribution. As I am sure you are aware, should a Konoha ninja ever attempt to target a clan ninja, the clans are empowered to seek retribution proportional to the offense. If this clause is to be ignored, it must be done by official decree and due compensation must be given to the targeted parties and their respective clans," Shibi explained. Furthermore, Shikaku picked up, the Sandaime's refusal to punish Kabuto and his decision to hide the traitor's actions could be taken as another attempt by the Sandaime to interfere in the internal workings of the Uzumaki clan as Naruto was the primary target. The Sandaime may have wanted Kabuto to try again, hoping for success so he'd have much weaker and potentially more pliable members to manipulate. "So, your argument is whether or not they did it, they had the right to do it because Sensei didn't fill out the proper paperwork?" Jiraiya asked in mild disbelief. "Yes," Shibi answered. His response was met with a sigh from the blonde Hokage. She should have known, with both clan heads being in the tower before their sons had even arrived, that the boys had figured some way out trouble should they be brought in. It was a deft use of politics, and if she ignored their arguments it'd cause a strain between her and two parties she couldn't afford to alienate. "As Sensei hadn't notified you of Kabuto's actions nor taken the proper steps to forestall any retaliatory efforts, I have no choice but to close this matter, but please be aware of my great displeasure. Maybe you had a right to do what you did, but it doesn't make it right. I hope we can live with the consequences of your actions. Everyone, save Jiraiya and Naruto, is dismissed." The Nara and the Aburame vacated, both Shika and Shino giving Naruto's shoulders a friendly squeeze before they left. He was alone now. "I'm mad at your teammates but I am deeply disappointed in you," Tsunade said, and had to ignore the twinge of pain she felt when Naruto's face seemed genuinely hurt by her words for the briefest of moments. "Before you say anything, I know Kabuto tried to kill your team. I know he was likely going to try again, and maybe it is unfair I expected you to just accept he still had a use, but he did. He was our best chance to get Zetsu and you took him off the table entirely. Not only that, But you should have trusted that I wouldn't let any harm come to you. You couldn't promise that, Naruto argued. You had no idea how he'd try, what he'd do and when he'd spring his trap. Him out of the village was one thing, but this place is either my home or it isn't. The old man couldn't seem to decide or just didn't give a shit too. I thought you'd be different. What is that supposed to mean? Tsunade asked as he was now her turn to be hurt. I know what it is to go to sleep surrounded by enemies, to only have a degree of safety because someone I couldn't trust was holding the leash on people who'd see me harmed if they could. I can't allow that now, and certainly not someone that close to Orochi. Tsunade's eyes lit up in realization. It wasn't just revenge or fear for himself. I get it, Naruto, she said with a soft smile, I do. But you could have cleared it with me instead of trying to get away with it. I believe you'll sit in this chair one day, but when you do I want you to make being Hokage admirable again. Sensei's last year's tarnished things and I'm widely seen as a placeholder. I don't mind, it's more or less true. But if you want to be like the Hokage of old you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. Naruto nodded and Tsunade dismissed him. Once he walked out the door, Tsunade made an exaggerated groan. There are several things to dislike about this job, but the hypocrisy may be the thing I hate the most, Tsunade complained as Jiraiya took a seat in front of her. Jiraiya laughed in response. Yay, if it had been you, we'd be picking up pieces of Kabuto from across the village, Jiraiya said, acknowledging her legendary temper. But you made a good point about Naruto holding himself to a higher standard, so it isn't outright hypocrisy, and I think he loves his surrogate aunt enough that any adolescent surliness was stamped down. My concern is, what are we going to do for the next several months? Minato went AWOL to save Kushina and she wasn't pregnant at the time. Oh, he told you? Tsunade asked, not really surprised that Jiraiya knew but became so when he shook his head no. I'm not a perfect sage, but I can sense everything the kid can, and Orochi's little bun wasn't hard to pick up. I'm sure Sensei doesn't know yet, but you need to let me know when he does. You can't protect him from himself, Jiraiya, nor should you be expected to. It isn't so much about protecting him as preventing the most harm I can. Prevention is better than treatment, but Sensei doesn't want to let this go. Unfortunately, whatever my fondness for him is, Orochi and Naruto are the more valuable assets. If I have to fix the problems he creates, you need to understand what my solution will be. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade in shock. You'd kill Sensei? He asked. His obsession with Orochi has put this village at risk, Jiraiya, multiple times. He allowed Nagato to attack within the village's walls. He let a double agent act freely within the village. He could have caused Naruto to, if we were lucky, go missing ninja, and if we weren't lucky, I don't want to think about the results. And if I hadn't left that loophole open, who knows what Team Kurenai would have done to get at Kabuto, consequences be damned. Wait, you knew they were going to try something? No, but of course I suspected they might. What kind of ninja would just accept someone trying to kill them and got away with it? It wasn't just an assassination attempt. Extracting a Baijuu can't possibly be a painless nor fast process. As soon as I knew Kabuto turned, I could have bought off the 3 clans. This was a contingency, one I hoped I wouldn't need, but here we are. You're more devious than people give you credit for. I'm a lady of many faces. Oh, really? You should feel free to show me your O-face anytime. Jiraiya didn't even mind the punch that followed as he noticed a slight pink to Tsunade's cheeks. No, it was totally worth it. Shikamaru thought once he left the Hokage's office he'd dealt with the only irate woman he'd have to for the day. His mother standing before him, hands on hips and fiercest glare on display, told him as much. He couldn't even find her troublesome, as he was much more annoyed that his father turned snitch and continued to let that woman run him. Well? Yoshino asked. Well, what? Shikamaru returned and received a slap on the head. Ow, he muttered. Don't get a smart mouth with me, Shikamaru Nara, and don't pretend to not know what I'm asking. Troublesome, whatever may have happened and whatever role I may or may not have played in it was necessary. Do better, commanded his father. When the panther cub came to him and explained what he'd need to do, Shikaku was genuinely confused. That he'd seemingly lost time did nothing to aid in that. I defended you to Tsunade-sama, so we deserve the truth. And you did a job on our clan grounds. Yoshino reminded her husband. Yay, and that? That was reckless, son, Shikaku observed, hiding his surprise when his son seemed to get offended. Was it? You find any bodies lying about? Shika asked, only to receive another slap. Ow, damn it. Ow. Don't curse at me. Shikaku, this is your fault, You were too lenient on him and now he's on the wrong path. Yoshino, please calm down and let Shikamaru explain. Seeing this as his opening, and an implicit order to do just that, Shikamaru explained, the actions we took today could have prevented a catastrophe from occurring later. It also prevented Shino and me from having to make some hard choices. This was for the best. Neither parent missed that Shika said only Shino and he would have the choices, but neither wanted to push much further. While the events of the day didn't inspire a lot of confidence, they knew their son to be an intelligent and practical person, generally. If this allowed them to avoid future peril, then it would, ultimately, be worth it. Yoshino, satisfied with her reaming, headed toward the kitchen. Believing she was out of earshot, Shikaku brought up the three boys' stated willingness to face the Onbu sent to detain them. Yoshino, however, had not been outside of listening distance and became incensed once more. Naruto entered his home with a sigh. His exchange with Tsunade hadn't eased his mental strain. Nothing would short of a nap, but he had to press forward. As he kicked off his sandals, he saw a pair that belonged to his betrothed. He didn't miss that she was absent from the Hokage's office. That could be for several reasons, and his taxed mind didn't have it to churn through. Being direct was the best option. Even if she should be mad, he killed Kabuto. Naruto exited the foyer, walking through the manor, and found her in the kitchen, eating cake out of a teal pastry box at the counter. "Hey, Orochi-chan, what you got there?" he asked. She favored him with a smile as she turned on her stool. "Cake. Specifically, the flavor of our wedding cake," she said. "I missed the tasting?" he asked, disappointed that he knew the answer before she replied. "Damn, I wanted to be there for that." "Kukaku, it's fine, Koharu, and I came to a decision and I am quite pleased. Besides, you were busy." "Yay. About that, anything you'd like to discuss?" "You can call down storms and cast village-wide genjutsu. I'm dismayed at how much you held back, and as soon as I'm no longer pregnant I'm getting a proper rematch," Orochi informed him. Naruto smiled, retrieving a fork. "Sure, whatever you want," he said as he sat beside her and attempted to sink his utensil into the cake. It passed through the baked good as if it never existed. Naruto squinted at Orochi. "This isn't really big enough to share. I'm sure you understand," she said with a devious smile. "Shouldn't I know what kind of cake is being served on my special day?" Naruto asked. "You could have. You decided to carry out an assassination with your friends. Did you even send out the invitations, as you were supposed to?" Orochi asked, touching his cheek, a sign she'd ended Kamui. "Gasp, milady. I had my cubs out informing all of our upcoming nuptials," Naruto answered, again attempting to take a piece of her cake slice, the result being the same as the initial try. "And you're fitting?" she inquired before taking a bite. "Taken care of, Shino's guy is efficient," he said, once again trying to sneak a piece, only for Orochi to turn away from him. "Dear, we're supposed to share in all things, you know." "Don't wanna, get your own," Orochi said as she migrated to the table. "Fine, what's the flavor so I can get it?" he asked. "Not telling, besides this was made special for the tasting so there isn't any more." "And you won't share?" "No one can accuse you of being slow on the uptake, Naruto-kun." The Uzumaki smiled at her barb. "I'll just have to take it then," he said as he blurred behind her, speedily reaching for his prize only to meet with the table. "Kukaku, nice try," Orochi said as she seemingly phased through the windows out to the back of the compound. Undaunted, Naruto flashed to the shiki engraved on her engagement ring as soon as she ended the jutsu, swiping his prize. Preparing to gloat, the words died as he watched Orochi extended her tongue to get the last of the cake. "Body modifications are cheating," he said, pointing at Orochi. She pointed to herself as she said, "Ninja, and nothing else." Naruto laughed but refused to concede the point. As he got his laughter under control, he ran a hand through his hair. He didn't want to sour the mood, but avoidance had never been his thing. "Orochi-chan, do we need to talk about Kabuto?" "What is there to talk about?" she asked, speaking again before Naruto could answer. "Kabuto was talented. I nurtured his talent because I saw he could be of use. I even started to like him. But Kabuto had two fatal flaws: he lacked the strength to be himself outside of my influence, and he froze me in his mind. I don't like stagnation, not in the world and not in myself. He couldn't handle my recent changes and crossed a line he couldn't come back from." "And my hand in his removal?" Naruto inquired. "As I assume you were motivated by my current state and I made that happen, it'd be silly to be upset with you." "Hey, I was pretty crucial in making that happen, too, T-Bio." "Of course, Sweetie, you're my big, strong man, Orochi said sarcastically and was confused when Naruto beamed with pride. I know you're making fun of me, but I am your big, strong man, so ha. Joke's on you. Laying the cake box down, Orochi glided toward Naruto and wrapped her arms around his waist when she arrived. Smiling, she looked up to her intended and leaned in. Naruto copied her without much thought. He did not receive the kiss he'd expected. He committed to leaning forward. Orochi turned her hips into him and tossed him to the ground, landing in a full mount as she looked down. Kukaku, you were saying? Orochi teased. This doesn't count, Naruto protested, Orochi adopting a look of disbelief as her response. Naruto rolled his eyes as he tried to sit up. Orochi had other ideas as she forced him back down. No, Naruto-kun. I like you like this, Orochi said, savoring the thrill of having the strongest shinobi in the world beneath her and at her mercy. She smiled softly as she leaned down, giving an uncharacteristically chaste kiss to her future husband. As she was going to kiss him again, her senses alerted her they were not alone, but she did not tense nor give away she was aware. Bagheera's father and I used to rut under the midday sun, too, the voice said as she emerged from the shadow in front of Orochi. The snake Sanin was mildly confused when Naruto buried his head in her stomach. Don't be embarrassed, Naruto-chan, passion is important in a relationship even if you've already seated her, the figure continued now fully visible. The humanoid panther, wearing a gold and white cloak, sat before the duo with a smirk. Naruto had informed her his summons could choose to look like regular jungle cats or transform, most simply went with their preference. Hi, Granny, Naruto said, though it was muffled as he was still hiding his face. Such a lackluster greeting from my favorite summoner. What have I done? What sin have I committed to be treated with such discourtesy? With little effort Naruto was on his feet, Orochi in tow, him gently putting her down so he could look at the grand elder of the Panthers. Sorry, Granny. It is, of course, lovely to see you today. What brings you by? See, that's much better. You've come such a long way since you were that confused, little cub. Couldn't even throw a proper punch and now look at you, starting a family. I'm so proud, Naruto-chan, Bast said. Not enough to stop calling me Naruto-chan, though, and I've noticed you haven't told me why you've graced us with your presence. Oh, it's no big deal. The girls and I paid a visit to the monkeys. I know that Hiruzen has given you both some trouble in the past, so I requested Enma keep his summoner in line, Bast explained. Requested? Naruto said with a really bad feeling in his stomach. Even if I had a knife to his throat I still phrased it as a question, so I think it counts. Granny, really? Yes. You know this is partially your fault. Okoye says you don't give them enough to do, so they were ready for some action. Don't worry, we didn't kill any of the shit flingers, Bast answered. Naruto, nearing his wit's end, just wanted this to be over. Orochi found humor in the situation. Kukaku, you threaten King Enma? I like you, Bast-sama, Orochi said. Bast waved her off. None of that Sama stuff. We're basically family now, which reminds me you two have a ritual to complete before your wedding day. Panther tradition, Bast explained, looking down at her nails. What? Granny, I told you personally I was getting married and you didn't mention any kind of ritual. Well, I forgot. I'm old, I forget things. I don't believe you, T-Bio, Naruto exclaimed. And Naruto meant that literally. He knew she had a mind like a steel trap. A summoning clan big on vendettas would not be forgetful. Shush, cubby, I forgot and now I've remembered. Don't worry, Naruto-chan, it isn't as involved as when you met your father. Just a simple bonding ceremony. Granny, I can't just accept that unilaterally, I needed to know so I could talk to Orochi about it, Naruto said, but felt like he was talking to a brick wall. It's fine, Naruto-kun. We can do the ritual the day before. Does that sound fair? Orochi offered. Bast nodded in approval. You got a real keeper here, Naruto-chan, Bast said, and Naruto beamed. Yay, I think so, too. An alert sounded, signaling someone was at the front door. Naruto didn't have to guess and wasn't surprised when he arrived to see Hiruzen there. He was, mildly, surprised to see Enma, Konohamaru and the fresh from a beard waxing Asuma with him. We need to talk, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said grimly, and Naruto rolled his eyes. The Uzumaki head waved them in as he cursed Bast for making it necessary. It had been 3 weeks since Daru's return. When he left Iwa, his mind was awash in ideas on how to proceed. A part of him wanted to travel to Konoha, somehow convince Kirabai to stand up to A and get the Leaf to back the transition. Daru quickly rejected the plan. Kirabai would not unseat his brother until evidence of Ai's incompetence revealed itself in hundreds or thousands of dead ninja. The Jinchuriki was simply too loyal to his brother to be preemptive. Another plan Daru considered was telling A what Aniki was trying. Daru had no doubt Aniki would betray him just as easily as he was willing to leave A without an ally in the first place. Daru knew Aniki had to subcontract to the Akatsuki because A refused to demilitarize and may hold some resentment for it. The former student of A also declined that option. A would either add Iwa to the list if he believed Daru or turn on the messenger, as there was no trust between the two men. He thought about what he could do and eventually settled on a course of action. That decision was why he was being ushered into the Raikage's office by a team of Onbu. If he'd made a mistake, this meeting was to be the death of him, but he'd rather risk it all than sit passively as A single-handedly ruined the hidden village. When he entered the office, he saw a tumbler on Ai's desk, a quarter full of a brown liquid. Of course, the shinobi thought. It was rare to not see A deep into a bottle. He felt bad for Mabui, as she had to absorb most of Ai's abuse. The Onbu scattered when the door closed behind Daru. He was alone with A, the muscled man looking furious behind his glassy eyes. I thought if you were going to attempt to depose me you'd come at me straight up. Instead, you write notes like a little girl, A barked, slamming down a copy of Daru's work. In the booklet, all of Ai's faults and failures were detailed. Even the Hyuga incident. Daru argued that A had brought them to the precipice of war and done so for his own ego. He asked any who would read his words to consider if they'd be willing and proud to die for that. Not for Kumo but for an arrogant manchild that wanted to upend everything to feel better about himself. Daru closed his work with a simple belief: as goes the cage goes the village. If the cage is powerful, honorable, and admirable, the village would be. If the cage were vain, brutish and vapid, so would the ninja. The copies, freely distributed, caused a stir. If A had been on his game he would have repressed the works immediately, but he was slow to act, a signal to all senior ninja that Daru had a point. Well, do you have anything to say? A yelled. You made this necessary. Your pride, your arrogance has led us astray, and now we risk war with two major villages without any significant allies nor our two Jinchuriki. You need to step down, A. A ripped through his desk and clotheslined Daru, the younger man unprepared for the blitz. The speed and power of the move sent both men through the office door and wall, Mabui shouting in shock. A didn't stop his charge until Daru's back met another wall. As he backed off, he looked at the once trusted shinobi in disdain. If you want to replace me, boy, you're going to have to do better than he attempted to boast but was speared by Daru. Not mirroring Ai's mistake, as soon as he secured the takedown, Daru started punching A in the face with controlled aggression. He landed 3 clean blows before A could begin to defend himself. The Raikage grabbed both of Daru's arms and then, in a feat of raw strength, flung the younger man off him. Enraged as he returned to his feet, A closes the distance and traps Daru in a bear hug, finishing with a belly-to-belly suplex. Not hearing the satisfying crunch of broken ribs, A was instead splashed with water. The realization he grabbed a clone coming too slow as he struck with a flying knee. The impact was enough to lift the Raikage off the ground, and Daru had no intention of letting up. Daru clasped Ai's arm and pulled him closer, hitting him flush in the jaw. The attack continued as fist, feet, and knees assaulted the drunken village leader. However, Daru had become too predictable in his assault and A launched his counter. Slapping both his ears, A left Daru stunned. The Yondaime palmed Daru's skull and slammed him down on the ground with enough force to fracture the floor. He did it twice more before lifting the man up and throwing him out the window. A wanted the entire village to see the fall of the usurper. He peered down at his former second-in-command with disappointment. Defeating him wouldn't be enough, he needed to break him and any future thought of resistance. A with but a thought activated his lightning armor, the symbol of Kumo's might, and appeared beside his downed opponent. A kick to the ribs started his renewed assault. Light, though. Not enough to fully crack Daru's ribs, but enough to fling him across several roofs. A let Daru attempt to get to his feet. When the man was nearly there, he got lifted with a knee, the force almost enough to cause whiplash. Before Daru could be carried away from the impact, he was grabbed, midair, and pulled into a punch to the abdomen. The Raikage let the younger man fall, watching as he coughed up blood. By now, much of the village had taken to the streets to see the fight. None were more surprised than Samui, Kamui, and Amoi, the students of Kirabai. Like most of the village's ninja, they'd read Daru's treatise. Amoe had wondered if he'd lead to a coup, but both his teammates dismissed it. Now, they feared the man had been right and the instability caused by a successful or failed overthrow would cause Kiribai's and Yugito's return to be further delayed. But like everyone else, they could only watch as if they were stuck to the ground. A was getting bored with batting Daru around. With his lightning armor active, the traitor posed no threat. He was bloodied but not yet broken. A walked toward his victim, knowing exactly how he wanted to end this. He lifted Daru up, preparing for a Liger bomb when the inexplicable happened. That sense of invincibility left him. His strength decreased. His lightning armor deactivated. He had no time to ponder why, to understand what was happening to his chakra system as Daru ruthlessly gouged him. On instinct, A dropped Daru, raising his hands to cover his eyes. He was blinded and in blinding pain. Daru took advantage of the distraction, performing his first ninjutsu of the fight. All witnessed as the famed lightning style, Black Panthers, was unleashed on a near defenseless A. The Raikage let out a primal scream as the Raiten entered his system, leaving smoke behind as it ended. "You're so arrogant you haven't even wondered why no Anbu, no Jounin has stepped in to stop this," Daru said, and he was right. A hadn't considered why his elite ninja hadn't detained his opponent. "We can all see it, A, see how your war ends. We have no allies, we have no Jinchuriki, and this war has no point. I tried to show you but your dull ass wouldn't listen." A stopped, still in great pain. Don't have to. I's declaration he didn't have to listen stopped by Daru delivering his killing blow. The storm style, laser circus beams pierced each of I's major organs and his brain. Daru knew there could be no doubt, no chance of I's survival. He turned to the assembled masses, attempting to appear stronger than he currently felt. Times would be tough, but they needed to know, ultimately, they would be alright. I's war likely cannot be avoided. In his attempt to ambush Konoha, we lost 100 senior ninja and look weak in the eyes of the other villages. This is no longer a war of conquest but one to save face, to show all that Kumo is more than one man's ambition. That we are strong. That we are enduring. That we are the storm, Daru shouted. The crowd cheered. When it petered out, Daru continued. "I cannot promise you times will be easy, they will not. But every decision I make will be for the betterment of Kumo. We will get through these dark times. We will get our guardians back and we will come out of this stronger than ever before. Kumo's best days are ahead of us, not behind us. As your god that is my vow to each of you." As the crowds chanted his name, Daru walked toward the recently arrived Shi, leaning on his friend for support. "I'm glad your chakra suppression poison worked. It would have been dull otherwise." "You'd be dead," Shi observed. "What sounds duller than death?" Daru asked. "I don't know, but we are in for interesting times. You ready?" "I have no choice but to be," was Daru's answer. "Strongest shinobi since the Shodai," Shikamaru observed without prompt, Shino nodding in agreement. "Single-handedly revolutionizing chakra manipulation," the Nara continued. "Excellent swordsman and taijutsu practitioner, too," Shino added, to really rub salt in the wound. "All this hard work just to punch an old man in the face?" Shikamaru asked, causing Naruto's eye to twitch. "Elder abuse is frowned upon, Naruto," said Shino, causing Naruto to finally respond. "I hate you both so very much," the Uzumaki said, head under a depression cloud. He didn't want to be here, at the Chunin Stadium. He certainly didn't want to be here to spar the old man, but apparently, when summons have conflict, their summoners are expected to settle matters. Naruto didn't personally feel there was much to settle. Bass does as she pleases, no one was going to stop her unless they had the power to do so, which Enma didn't. But she also didn't kill anyone, so no harm no foul. The Monkey King and the former Hokage disagreed. Well, Enma did. Hiruzen thought them fighting would be a great way for them to resolve their issues. Naruto saw the logic. As much as he didn't like it, he knew that sometimes you just had to cross fists to hash out your differences and then talk later. Still, Naruto had no interest in it. He'd processed and resolved the hate he had for the old man. Even a lot of the hurt was gone. Nothing could change what Hiruzen did, how he chose his vanity at the expense of Naruto. However, that could be gotten over, and while they'd never be close again, they could coexist. No, the oceanic problem that no bridge could cross was that Hiruzen had a deep and sincere hatred for Orochimaru. She had the same, and Naruto had clearly chosen a side. There was simply no relationship to mend with someone that schemed to get his future wife killed or exiled and hunted. But the old man persisted, and even Bass said Naruto should just do it, so here he was. With his asshole teammates, being accused of elder abuse. "You know, that geezer could kick both your asses," Naruto observed as he put on his armor, preparing to enter the arena floor. Shino and Shikamaru shared the briefest of glances before Shino said, "You're still about to beat on a grandfather and retiree. Have I mentioned how much I hate you both?" That laughter was the only response to his question, annoyed him even more. Naruto left the changing area and headed to the battleground, Hiruzen and Enma waiting with Jiraiya. It had only been a day since this was decided, and yet, somehow, word had spread and the stadium was full. Once Naruto arrived at Jiraiya's location, he bit his left thumb and slid blood down the summoning tattoo on his arm. Slamming his hand down, Bast appeared in a hunter green and gold trim cloak. "Oh, fight time already?" Bast asked, and Naruto nodded. She turned to walk away, confusing her summoner, who made his confusion known. "Granny, where are you going?" "To take a seat, obviously," she answered. "It is not obvious. Aren't you going to help me here since you caused this?" Naruto asked. "Do you need my help, Naruto-chan?" she asked with a quirked brow. "It'd be nice," her summoner responded. Bast rolled her eyes and continued walking. Naruto put his face in his hands, trying not to yell in frustration. "I guess all relevant parties are here now," Jiraiya started. "This is a fight between summoners, but all Konoha rules and regulations apply. No killing blows, no maiming. Additional stipulations for you, Naruto, are no Baijuu chakra, no Sage Mode. No shadow clones, no wood clones, do the hokey pokey before I turn myself around." "Yes, Jiraiya, I already agreed with this." "And no dust release, smartass," Jiraiya said. Thanks to the location, Jiraiya's voice was picked up and broadcast to all in attendance, and those watching on a special feed within the village. The Gamma Sanin saw a brief look of fury pass his godson's face, which confused him. "No one but you knew I could do that, yet, Jiraiya." "Oh." Jiraiya goofed, "Huh?" "Yup," Naruto said, popping the P at the end. "How much is this going to cost me?" "Why, Godfather, I appreciate you paying for my wedding," Naruto said, sounding entirely too sincere for Jiraiya's taste. "Half," Jiraiya said, both ignoring that much of the village could hear this. "Okay," Naruto said, and watched Jiraiya nod in affirmation. "And then, the other half. You're all class, Godfather. You're a shakedown artist," Jiraiya accused, causing Naruto to laugh for the first time today. Naruto just shrugged and Jiraiya lowered his head. Fight," Jiraiya said, moving out the way. Hiruzen speeds through a sequence of hand signs, unleashing an earth-style, earth flow river toward Naruto, assuming he was unprepared. This was proven wrong when Naruto finished his own hand signs, the technique stopping the mud river in its tracks, turning it back to its solid state. "Earth-style, quick hardening," Naruto said. "If an E-rank jutsu I created to keep my sandals clean can stop you, then maybe we should call this off." Hiruzen ignored his grandson and performed another sequence of hand signs, inhaling deeply and exhaling a stream of flames. The fire-style, dragon flame bomb blazed toward Naruto, who had also been preparing his own jutsu. Having inhaled a beat after Hiruzen and unleashed his counter a moment later, the wind-style, backdraft spear was a vacuum manipulation jutsu meant to counter fire techniques specifically. As the flame is deprived of oxygen, it follows Naruto's concentrated wind tunnel back to the original caster. Hiruzen and Enma rolled out of the backlash, neither receiving any burns, and continued moving in opposite directions. It was obvious to Naruto what they were attempting, so to stall their tactic he flowed through more hand signs and targeted Hiruzen. The lava-style, dragon missile bombardment formed from the ground with a dragon's head of lava emerging from it and then spitting dozens of projectiles of burning rock. Not even a mud wall of Hiruzen's level could withstand the impact, and he had to take evasive action. Knowing the old man was distracted, Naruto sped toward Enma. Enma didn't have time to be shocked by Naruto appearing before him. The uppercut to his midsection took all of his attention. The second one was less considered but no less felt, lifting the chief summons off his feet. To end the indignity, he was grabbed by his tail and thrown toward Hiruzen as if he were nothing but an annoyance. The Monkey King managed to land on his feet after a few rolls to distribute the force of his impact and deftly avoiding any pools of lava left over from Naruto's diversionary tactic. "Are you okay, Enma?" Hiruzen asked while never taking his eyes off Naruto. "The boy is strong," Enma responded, still reeling from the exchange. Hiruzen provided nothing in return. Many in the crowd were reeling from the pre-fight revelations and the first exchange. Whispers speculating who the honorable son could be getting married toward, with him being able to use the famed dust release of the knee and Sandaime Tsuchikage. Ino, ever the gossip, wanted to extract information out of Shikamaru, Shino and he having joined the rookies in the stands, only to be met with surprise. "You don't know?" Shikamaru asked. He honestly hadn't thought it a secret, but he sometimes forgot Team Kurenai often acted in a separate world. Most people didn't know what the hell they got up to and they all preferred it that way. "Of course I didn't know," Ino said. "He hasn't even been back that long. Who snatched him up?" "You sound almost disappointed," Shika observed. Ino shrugged while saying, "I'm not looking to settle down or anything, but we could have had some fun." "So, who is it?" "Probably some basic bitch that doesn't challenge him in any way and swoons at the very sight of Naruto-sama," Tenten interjected. Shino's repressed bout of laughter unnerved everyone, only making them more uncomfortable as he lost complete control. Shikamaru soon gave out and joined his teammate. Even Kurenai let a few go. "Well, I don't know if I'd call Orochimaru a basic bitch, but you certainly can, Tenten," Shikamaru said, causing the rookies to pale. Wah. No. The weapons mistress said in disbelief. "What's with you nerds getting all the hot chicks?" Kiba blurted out in mild frustration. While not stated the best, the other rookie shinobi had to agree. Orochimaru scared the shit out of all of them, but she was a certified snack. Tamari and Tuya were both very attractive, and outside of whatever Sasuke was doing with Sakura, none of them were involved with anyone. "Extra inch for every 10 IQ points over 130, Shino said dryly as if he were delivering a scientific certainty. 202, Shikamaru added. "Wait. That can't be true, Kakashi-sensei?" Kiba asked. 210, the Hatake said with an eye smile. His team sweat dropped. Back to the arena floor, Naruto decided to go on the offensive. The lava-style, magma river gushed from below the surface, headed straight toward Hiruzen. The Sandaime, remaining remarkably calm for a Yotan technique he'd never seen, flowed through the seals for the water-style, wild water wave. The two jutsu met in the middle, instantaneously reacting to each other, battling to see which would have the lasting impact. The Suten jutsu won as it rapidly cooled the lava and generated a great deal of steam. Naruto continued with his next attack, forcing Hiruzen to evade as 6 black as Night Shuriken launched from the form. The lava-style, obsidian shuriken jutsu was just a diversion. Hiruzen ably dipped, ducked and dodged the projectiles, but his path led him directly into a thin streak of blue lightning. Naruto's lightning style, piercing fang hit true, but he was already catching the uppercut coming from underground before he realized he'd dispelled a mud clone. Striking out with a back fist, Naruto dispelled another mud clone. It was now the Uzumaki's turn to evade as one Fuma Shuriken because dozens, the Sandaime Shadow Shuriken jutsu being deftly utilized on a distracted opponent. Naruto saw what he assumed to be the real Hiruzen's location and swiftly came up with a plan. Instead of moving and falling into a trap, Naruto decided to stand his ground. The crowd collectively gasped as an impromptu forest was grown right before their eyes, for it was one thing to be told he could use the Mukuten, but it was another to witness it. The Fuma Shuriken were stopped by the thick and sturdy trees. Naruto retrieved his own shuriken but did not throw it, instead utilizing his kotan to make it into a gunbai. Showing his facility with one-handed signs, Naruto performed the fire style, incinerator bullet and juiced the blistering hot fireball with the wind generated by the swing of the gunbai. Hiruzen created another mud wall, but Naruto would not have the chance to see if it could withstand his combined attack. Enma, again, decided to engage the Uzumaki in taijutsu, likely feeling he'd have an edge in the trees. Beginning with a leg sweep, followed by a roundhouse, Enma was all aggression. He demonstrated what years of experience could net as his attacks wasted no motion nor energy. But he could not break through the defenses of his much younger opponent. If not outright blocked, his attacks were parried or dodged. Even as they moved through the trees, Enma found his attacks negated. Getting frustrated, Enma lashed out with a straight right. Naruto grabbed the attacking arm and brought his leg over it, kicking Enma twice with his forward and backward motion. Naruto then pulled the Monkey King into a shattering left hook that sent the summons hurtling toward the ground. Instead of the hard impact he expected, he was caught by Hiruzen. "I have the high ground, old man. You want to concede?" Naruto asked from his lofty perch. As the crowd watched the mastery-level display of ninjutsu, one attendee was vocally more appreciative than others. "Yay, Cubby, kick that monkey's ass," Bast yelled, spilling some of her popcorn. Orochimaru and Tsunade laughed at the exuberant summons as she cheered on her summoner. "Enjoying yourself, Bast-sama?" Tsunade asked, knowingly. "Of course. And like I told Naruto-chan's mate, You don't have to bother with that Sama stuff. I'll keep that in mind. What about you, Orochi? You could almost say this fight is about you, if you so wished, Tsunade finished with a teasing tone. Orochi rolled her eyes but said nothing in response, more interested in seeing if Hiruzen could force Naruto to show something new. Tsunade, taking Orochi's silence as a challenge up the ante. Or can you not even envision a competition for your hand? I mean, who could possibly compete? True love is like that, you know. You sound like an idiot, and if Koharu were here she'd agree with me, Orochi spat. PFFT, she'd side with me. Don't be embarrassed, Orochi-chan. Love is wonderful, right Bast? Sure is. I'm thinking of taking another lover myself. Gave the last one a heart attack. I put it on him so good. That's not unimpressive, Orochi said as even she knew game recognized game. Elsewhere in the stands sat a conflicted Jinan. Konohamaru had no idea why his grandfather requested he go to the boss's house, but once there he did not like where things went. He was an exuberant and optimistic boy, but he was also smart. He knew he was one of the things that kept Naruto Oyabun from lashing out at his grandfather, and he could also tell he had no interest in this. He hoped his grandfather didn't push Oyabun too far, he really just wanted this over. I believe you underestimate me, Hiruzen answered back to Naruto's call to surrender, and Asuma frowned. He understood what his old man wanted, but this was likely several years and 3 schemes too late. But, as was his way, the former Hokage couldn't be reasoned with. At Enma calling for blood, there was just simply no way he'd seek an alternate solution. Asuma had his share of issues with his father, but he didn't want to see him hurt. He also knew if Naruto got hurt, Kurenai would be leading the calls for blood. The bearded Jounin refused to think about what Orochimaru might do. Reflex, habit, trained response. Whatever one may deem it, Naruto's lungs expanded as they had numerous times before, this time filled with noxious gas until he was ready to unleash his next jutsu. The ninja art, miasma, was as advertised. A thick, heavy fog of poison gas was sprayed down below the trees, toward Hiruzen. Knowing what the color of the chakra gas meant, even if he wasn't used to the specific utilization, Hiruzen performed the earth style, earth rampart. The mountainous wall was intended to bring Hiruzen to Naruto's level, but the Uzumaki would have none of it. Several of his high-pressure water-style water lances carved through the rock, destabilizing it. Both Hiruzen and Enma fell toward the fog, disappearing from view. The August shinobi knew to hold his breath. Though he assumed the poison gas wasn't lethal, it would still be a detriment. He signaled to Enma, and the summons transformed to his legendary staff form, spinning over to Hiruzen. Catching his longtime partner, Hiruzen started several mighty swings as the gusts cleared the miasma. Now with some breathing room, Hiruzen took in the air and used a Katen jutsu to burn away the rest of the gas. Hiruzen saw the tri-pronged kunai land beside him. His mind told him to move, but his arms gained a sudden amount of weight and his legs lost their sturdiness. His reflexes slowed. His mind was still fast enough to realize the miasma acted as a contact poison. Holding his breath hadn't saved him. Soon, he found himself wrapped in a tree, Naruto emerging out of it. He knew it was a genjutsu, but Jiraiya stepped in before he could begin to counter it. Having his chakra disrupted a moment later, he saw he was actually wrapped in a tree. He'd just experienced Naruto's ninja art, true tree-binding death. The crowd cheered for the combatants, but Hiruzen felt empty. The battle hadn't been fierce enough to resolve things. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Naruto standing behind him. That was a better fight than Jiraiya normally gives me. You've still got some kick, old man, Naruto complimented. More than you might realize. Give me a rematch and I might surprise you, Hiruzen said. I'm sorry, Naruto, for everything, the unspoken meaning. Naruto looked away for a brief moment as if unsure. We'll have to see, old man. No promises, Naruto said. I know, but that's not enough, Naruto expressed subtextually. Hiruzen nodded and Naruto returned to play up his win for the crowd. Hiruzen knew if he wanted any semblance of a relationship with his former grandson, he had to come to a resolution with Orochimaru. Alright guys, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. As always, the rest of the story is already out over on Patreon, link to that will be in the description. Anyways, until next time, peace.